Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports. Joined by myself, Mark and Reece for the F1 podcast. Haven't done one of these in a little while, but we're going back to it. So we've got paddock rumours happening and all these various stories coming out, of course, after yesterday's Grand Prix in Mexico, which saw Max Verstappen took a record-breaking 16th win in a single season. So, Reece, of course, we're going to go and talk about a lot of things. And, of course, anybody can go and ask us some questions in the chat. We've got a poll going up as well with regards to one of the main stories which is coming out of these paddock rumours, which is that Alonso could potentially replace Sergio Perez in that Red Bull seat.
Yes, well, it is a bit of a far-fetched rumour, of course, but it gets the clicks, which is why that is set as our thumbnail and our title for today. But I think it could be possible in the future. I think Sergio Perez isn't performing up to the level that he needs to be in that Red Bull seat. We're seeing Fernando Alonso, well, we saw him in the beginning of the season doing relatively well in that Aston Martin car, but now throughout the rest of the season they have not upgraded it and evolved it as much as the other teams throughout the top five, and that's why they are falling back and out of that top five title battle. So I think that's relatively disappointing for Fernando Alonso, and I think he's going to be hoping to get a top team to drive with. And I don't think you can ever discount him. Of course, he is a little bit older in age, but still performing at the level, or at the same level as those youngsters that are also in Formula One. And I don't think it is too far-fetched to get him into that seat.
No, not at all in this case. Of course, as we said, it's a rumour. It's very much just pretty much probably somebody in the back there just going and saying, oh, you know what, let's have Alonso in that Red Bull car. But let's actually look at what that would mean and what that could potentially do in that Red Bull I suppose that Red Bull setup. So gpblog.com's got a little bit of an article here, and we're just going to read a little bit into it, and I suppose we'll chat about the various things that could happen with regards to it. So the rumor started on Monday after tweets from some prominent figures in F1. So it is no secret that there was tension in several different areas. The big question is which bomb will blow first. After Mexico Grand Prix, here's the state of play on some lingering issues in the sport. The seat next to Max Verstappen, being Sergio Perez, has been under pressure at Red Bull Racing all year. We know this. First, Perez wants to compete for the world title, but now he's seemingly losing his seat with the team. In front of his home crowd, the Mexican would have scored the most important points for his season for the standings, but he threw it all away with his chances in the first corner. The Red Bulls supported him afterwards, but internally the situation will be discussed differently. This cannot go on like this. Not only is Perez simply too slow compared to Verstappen, but he is also too big a cost for the team at the moment. The 33-year-old driver has already caused a lot of damage with his crashes, which is far from ideal with the budget cap. Daniel Ricciardo did make his mark in the Mexico Grand Prix of all places by qualifying fourth ahead of Perez in the Red Bull 19. Ricciardo also drove a decent race, and although it must be said that Yuki Tsunoda came very close until his crash, Ricciardo finished off in 8th position. So he did exceptionally well, and Perez not finishing the race shows that Ricciardo really did put his name up there in terms of outperforming Perez within that Red Bull setup. Perez, though, not performing well enough for Red Bull Racing standard, but is Ricciardo the best alternative? Well, Alex Albon shows weekly at Williams that he has also grown immensely, but Helmut Marko argues that they cannot now cut the tie loose. They cannot now cut the tie loose of Williams. His team talks have also been held with Lando Norris, but he would prefer a longer stay at McLaren over a place alongside Max Verstappen. Then perhaps Carlos Sainz, an old friend of Red Bull and the ideal second driver to Charles Leclerc. However, Sainz wants to win himself and knows from experience that he'll be in trouble alongside Verstappen, so the options are limited, which brings across the big rumour mill of Fernando Alonso.
Of course, there has been a little bit of rumours going about Fernando Alonso wanting to retire with the whole Aston Martin saga. A big question mark also appears behind Fernando Alonso's name. At 42 years old, Alonso is the oldest Formula One driver on the grid. And where he was still so positive at the beginning of the year, while the whole Aston Martin project was still somewhat competitive, it has now collapsed. And there are some rumours going around that Lawrence Stroll could soon pull the plug on his Formula One project. The Geely Group is reportedly looking to take over, and given that his son Lance Stroll's motivation has dropped away from Formula One, Lawrence would do well to sell the lot. The team started the Formula One season so well, but has taken completely the wrong direction with the development of their car. This certainly will not please Stroll. With the RB18 that was copied well at the beginning of the season by Dan Fallows and his squad, but over the year it became clear that copying does still not allow you to understand those fundamental fundamentals of their design concept. The Stroll family has tried in Formula One, first at Williams, then at Aston Martin, with mega amounts of money being put into that team, but with no success for their son, Lance.
So, will Fernando Alonso rather retire, or will he move to yet another team in his Formula One career? With the Aston Martin saga, a big question mark also appears behind Fernando Alonso's name. At 42 years old, Alonso is the oldest F1 driver on the grid. So, will he move into that seat, you reckon, next season or not?
Well, I don't know about Red Bull. I think they are just... He's a little bit too old for them, unfortunately, in terms of signing him for a multi-year contract. Maybe they might just sign him for a year to allow maybe Daniel Ricciardo to get a little bit more comfortable in the AlphaTauri seat and then re-evaluate after that. I think if Aston Martin isn't going to be able to provide a good enough race car for Fernando Alonso, he is going to start looking elsewhere. I think his contract still goes into next year, but they could try and do a driver swap between himself and Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez used to be in that team when it was still Force India, then becoming Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. So I think he would be welcomed back at the team by all of the engineers and personnel, but I don't know if anyone would want him back at his current form. Unfortunately, just not being able to be competitive in what could be the most dominant Formula One car in history of the sport.
Yeah, so I mean, Fernando Alonso not really going to be moving to Red Bull. He's quite old, and it's unlikely that he will make a move to that Red Bull seat, but it is still part of the rumour mill. Stranger things have happened, and we could very well see Sergio Perez at least out of that Red Bull seat next year. And if Sergio Perez does happen to leave Red Bull in the next coming seasons, who would you like to see in his place? Would you like to see Fernando Alonso, even though he's 42 years old, started to get towards the end of his career, one imagines eventually? Would you like to see him in that Red Bull? Would you like to see Alex Albon come back to that Red Bull car? Would Norris suit it? Would another driver completely suit it? Maybe Daniel Ricciardo be upgraded, Perez be lumped into that AlphaTauri team? All these questions will be asked. So be sure to let us know in the comments. As Stefan is joining us here saying, how's it, guys? Great to have you here, Stefan. And yeah, I mean, I suppose that brings us then to the thing, talking of the weekend with regards to Perez's home Grand Prix. So we've got 5 winners, we've got 5 losers. Let's go through one of the winners.
Of course, Max Verstappen being the biggest winner from that Grand Prix race weekend, winning the race by a gap of over 15 seconds to Lewis Hamilton in second place. Just reading through here, Max Verstappen has taken up a near-permanent residency in the winners section of this feature this year. The Dutchman delivering yet again another commanding performance in Mexico City to secure a 16th win in his 2023 season, which is a new single-season record. This was Verstappen's 5th victory in Mexico, tying Austria's Red Bull Ring for the venue where he has enjoyed his most success, and moving him to 251 points clear of the top of the Drivers' Championship. He has already won the championship, but there's a bigger gap that separates all the other drivers in the drivers' standings. His 18th podium of the year in 19 events ties his own single-season record with 3 Grand Prix still to go. This year just gets better and better for the Red Bull racer.
Yeah, indeed. And his teammate, not so much. Of course, Sergio Perez did not. And he was a big loser. That's the very next person, of course, we have to talk about. And in the case of emotions was the other scale for Verstappen's teammate, as he was distraught with his performance after making contact with Charles Leclerc that caused race-ending damage. His second retirement in 4 races was a painful way to end his home Grand Prix race weekend at a venue where he enjoyed such unrelenting and passionate support from a wonderful crowd. And it means his lead over Lewis Hamilton in the fight for P2 in the Drivers' Championship was near cut in half with 20 points, the gap heading to Brazil. The pressure is on for Sergio Perez. And as James says in the comments, can definitely see Perez to AlphaTauri with Ricciardo to Red Bull. Alonso will stay, I think. Well, I think that's one of the big things that you could possibly see in that Red Bull setup. It's very easy, of course, for them to do so, just to move them within the team. It is all one big setup, AlphaTauri being their second team. So one imagines if they really aren't happy enough with Sergio Perez, they will put Daniel Ricciardo in that seat instead.
To be honest, I don't know why they'd want to move Sergio Perez into the AlphaTauri team. They're spending multi-millions on him per year to be able to compete in that AlphaTauri seat. He's not at the moment. Why would you give him a second chance in your sister team when you can just put in one of your younger drivers and just get him out and not have to pay him anymore?
So what you're saying is basically, don't put Perez in any team, have him maybe even as a reserve, put Liam Lawson straight into that AlphaTauri setup.
I think so. I don't see the point in putting him in that AlphaTauri seat. That seat is meant for young drivers to make their way into Formula One and then into that Red Bull seat. Why demote him into the AlphaTauri seat and pay him multi-millions as if he's still in that Red Bull seat? You're still going to pay him either way if he's not in the sport or if he's in the sport. So take him out completely. Maybe he can go to another team or he has to have a hiatus here. and then just put a younger driver in that AlphaTauri seat and possibly move Daniel Ricciardo up into Red Bull.
Well, what it does sound like is there needs to be an ultimatum with regards to Sergio Perez. Will they back him for next season? Will they not? They need to make this decision ASAP because we're only 3 races away from the end. You know, we've got Brazil, we've got Las Vegas, we've got Abu Dhabi, and that is the season over. And they really do need to make these decisions quickly because the seasons are so long. The start of the season early next year, they need to get cracking with regards to what's happening. They need to have an understanding. As Reece says, do you agree with him in the comments? Go and let us know. Should it be Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda and AlphaTauri, and Danny Rick and Verstappen in Red Bull? Should it be Liam Lawson and somebody else completely in that AlphaTauri setup? Or do you think Perez would be demoted to AlphaTauri? Reece doesn't think so. I certainly don't think so. It's not really a logical move at all. I'm struggling to see if Red Bull would make such an offer for somebody this late on, though, for next season. So I think that's the only thing that comes with this.
You say that, but Mick Schumacher was released from Haas at the end of the season last year.
Yeah.
So we've seen stuff left to later in the season. Just looking at a few winners, a few other winners from this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, of course, being the biggest winner, having come in P2 off the back of his US Grand Prix, where he was unfortunately disqualified from that race due to the wear on his floor. But this was one of Lewis Hamilton's strongest drives of the year, with the Briton fighting through from 6th on the grid to secure a brilliant second in the Mexico Grand Prix for the 3rd year in succession. He clocked the fastest lap on the final lap of the race. That is his 65th career fastest lap, moving him just 12 adrift of Michael Schumacher's all-time record. The bonus point that came with it also helped in his pursuit for second in the Drivers' Championship, a target that recently looked fanciful, but is very much on the cards now, given his performance curve.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think Lewis Hamilton could get further up in the Drivers' Championship?
100%. I think he's going to take it away from Sergio Perez.
You reckon he gets second?
I don't think that Sergio Perez is going to be able to hold out at the moment with his pure run of form right now. I think he's going to retire from possibly another race in the next 3.
You know what would have been interesting is the fact that if Hamilton didn't get disqualified in the previous race, and then of course we saw Sergio Perez not finish yesterday and Hamilton get a second, we probably would have seen Hamilton literally he would have taken already.
This weekend.
So it's an interesting one, the fact that Hamilton, even with that disadvantage last weekend, could still very easily take Sergio Perez right at the end here, which will be damning to Red Bull, of course, and their hopes for having a 1-2 and Constructors' Championship in the belt. So lots of eyes on Sergio Perez. But Hamilton, of course, certainly advancing in that Mercedes car, and the Mercedes team certainly advancing towards a much better season in 2024. A team, of course, that's still associated with Red Bull that saw a lose over the weekend was that of Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, Yuki Tsunoda. I'm getting fed up with Yuki Tsunoda, to be very honest. I think Red Bull need to get rid of 2 drivers. They need to get rid of Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda has been in that AlphaTauri seat for 3 years now. He hasn't been promoted up into the Red Bull seat, hasn't shown any major signs of a breakthrough in terms of performance, and we're still seeing the fact that he is so immature in that car. I think the point that proved that for me this race weekend was the fact when he crashed with Oscar Piastri, he of course was spun around there into turn 1. Then instead of getting his car back out onto track, he was throwing a tantrum in that car, throwing his hands all over the place instead of getting back out onto circuit.
I mean, it was absolutely bizarre, as you say. I mean, even in his turn, he was throwing his hands up, and then the car stopped, started the car moving, and then was just throwing his hands up, hitting his steering wheel, and then getting going eventually. His engineer came back onto the radio to go and say, you can still make up lots of places in this race, keep going. He says, I do not want to be spoken to. I don't want to hear any more things for the rest of the race. So basically saying, I don't actually care about the rest of this race because I'm just going to be a fed-up little spoiled brat, essentially.
Well, I think it really shows the immaturity still of Yuki Tsunoda. He is still quite young, but we have seen better mindsets coming from other Red Bull juniors, from other juniors in the sport. Full stop, really. I think there's a lot more people in the sport who deserve to get into that seat and could do a lot better with their performance compared to Yuki Tsunoda.
And of course, Yuki Tsunoda not performing well is going to seriously impact him these days because his packing with Honda is not going to be that strong as it was before. Honda and Red Bull were like this.
It's not going to be as strong as it was before. It's going to become non-existent, Mark.
Exactly.
Because they are moving away from Red Bull. Red Bull are moving towards their own powertrains that are built in-house with collaboration with Ford on their engine energy recovery unit part. But I do think that Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda are going to be coming under a lot of pressure, specifically from Helmut Marko. We know he's very, very tough on their drivers, but I think when they are not performing up to their best, that is when they need to kind of have a look at themselves and see where they can improve. And I think Yuki Tsunoda has done that multiple times and just is not making any breakthroughs in his performance. Another winner from this race weekend, though, was Daniel Ricciardo, who went on to say it looked like who has been topped to say it looks like the Daniel Ricciardo of old is back from this race weekend. Said the Red Bull boss Christian Horner as he heralded a sensational performance from the Australian, competing in only his second race since recovering from a broken hand. Old man Rue there in the comment section saying, I agree, Yuki should go.
Well, it's the interesting thing, of course. Daniel Ricciardo did brilliantly to finish 8th after qualifying in 4th, and he should have actually got 7th. If he had another lap in him, he would have taken George Russell. Got very, very close to the back of him, handling his tyres a lot better in a much less powered car, of course, in that AlphaTauri seat, one of the worst cars on the grid.
Well, not anymore. They have brought major upgrades from the US Grand Prix onwards. Actually, no, I think it may have been even the Qatar Grand Prix that they did bring those Red Bull style upgrades. Of course, they're allowed to copy the concepts of other cars within reason. They are allowed to take a certain amount apart from their Red Bull sister team as well. And they're doing that now as much as possible within the set regulations. And now we are seeing Daniel Ricciardo being able to find a lot more performance in that car and get his car a lot higher up the grid. Of course, his qualifying result was helped a lot by the fact that Yuki Tsunoda did give him the slipstream. But even without the slipstream of Yuki Tsunoda in Q3, he still placed his car up in P4.
Well, yeah, we talk about that, of course, but AlphaTauri still nowhere near Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari and the likes. They shouldn't be anywhere near them, yet still competing yesterday.
I was going to say, you say they're nowhere near the likes of them, but they're now able to compete with them in a race, which is very power dependent at this circuit in Mexico. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen at a more traditional track like the one next weekend out at Interlagos in Brazil. That's a much more realistic indicator of their true performance with those new car upgrades. I think we're also going to be looking at a lot of other teams who have brought major upgrades. As we look at another winner, or another loser rather, from this weekend, which was Haas. This was a chastising weekend for Haas, who dropped to the bottom of the Constructors' Championship after a 4th Grand Prix without points. Nico Hülkenberg looked like he may snatch at least one with a gritty drive on his 200th Grand Prix weekend, but 70 laps in on the mediums proved a step too far as he faded down to 13th. His teammate Kevin Magnussen had a massive crash when his Haas suffered a left rear suspension failure through turn 8, which veered him into the barriers, causing a major amount of damage to his car, damage to the Tech Pro barriers, and a red flag in that race, which just caused a little bit more interesting dynamics throughout that race yesterday on Sunday.
Exactly. And we go then to one of our major winners yesterday, arguably the best drive I've seen from Lando Norris in a little while. Granted, a lot was helped, to get him up to the position, but starting all the way down in 17th position to fight his way to the top 5. I mean, unbelievable.
Yes, Lando Norris, of course, we expected him to be able to fight through the top 10 and get quite close up to the top. I was almost expecting him to get onto the podium because we know how fast these McLarens have been all season. With their new upgrades, of course, from, I think it was about race 5 or 6 onwards that they did bring those newly upgraded cars, and they did find all of that pace. I think it was in Austria where they did bring that major upgrade. But we're expecting him to be at the top. Of course, he was hampered by the fact that he did not get a clean run in qualifying 1 on Saturday evening, so he was eliminated from that first qualifying session, and that really made his race a little bit more difficult. I think he would have been able to challenge for possibly top 2, maybe for the race win yesterday if he didn't have that bad qualifying session on Saturday evening.
Indeed. So he was very busy in Mexico yesterday, doing exceptionally well to get ahead of George Russell right near the end there and move himself into 5th. And that's the most positions he has ever gained in a race, and was the kind of performance that yielded the fan-voted Driver of the Day accolade for the 4th race in a row. And yet, he seems to doubt himself often in his car, and Driver of the Day 4 times in a row. One imagines that he does need to just take a chill every now and then and realize he's quite the driver. Should he be moving on from McLaren, or do you think McLaren will give him a car next season that'll really get him motoring?
Well, I think now the basis car that they have, they can evolve and develop on that. They seem to have found a lot of pace. Next year, hopefully they keep on the fundamentals of this car and just elevate it a step or 2, hopefully a step or 3, because then they should be able to compete with the likes of Red Bull. But looking at another loser from this race weekend, Alfa Romeo was another big one, who looked menacing throughout practice, particularly through Valtteri Bottas, with the Swiss team getting both cars into Quali 3. However, the race fortunes weren't as rosy. Bottas was unlucky to pit just a lap before the safety car, which meant he lost a significant amount of track position. The team then said that he got a tear-off suck in his left rear brake duct, which caused the brake temperatures to spike throughout the race and limited his ability to recover from those lost positions from the safety car. Show 2 was hurt by the red flag having pitted earlier, but lacked the grip after the restart and was unable to attack, leaving him 14th at the flag.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, for all that we say they're losers, I think Alfa Romeo barely scored points this season. We talked about Alfa Tauri being one of the worst teams this season in general. Points-wise, I think Alfa Romeo are the worst team on the grid. Certainly one of the far down teams in the whole grid. So them having got into Q3 and starting in the top 10 by itself was automatically a win. The moment they started the race, they were never going to hold on to those positions. But, as I say, they could have tried to do more in the race yesterday, but not able to do so. And we move on to our final winner from yesterday, that of Ferrari. Ferrari caused an almighty shock on Saturday as they took their first front row since last year's Monaco Grand Prix, headed by Charles Leclerc. They were unable to hold on to it, of course, but they did still finish 3rd and 4th.
Yes, after a relatively bad start for Charles Leclerc, the two Ferraris got away, but Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez had a much better getaway in their Red Bull cars. And Max Verstappen went on to split the two Ferraris down that main straight and take first place into corner 1, where Charles Leclerc was wedged in between the two Red Bulls. He had Sergio Perez on his outside, him in the middle, and Max Verstappen on his inside. He went to try and compete with Max Verstappen into turn 1, but he also, as I said, had that car of Sergio Perez on his left. Sergio Perez just, I think, misjudged the amount of space that he had to Charles Leclerc. Hit his front left tyre, sent himself flying up into the air, ended his race, of course, then yesterday. Charles Leclerc received a little bit of damage on his front wing, breaking the end plate off of that. He was at least able to keep up in terms of pace to Max Verstappen, dropping a few tenths every lap, but being able to compete at least. Then the safety car did come out, and then the red flag was called because of that crash from the Haas driver of Kevin Magnussen. They were able to then fix that front wing, but later in the race, he did lose that second place position to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, but still a great race though for Ferrari. Finishing in 3rd and 4th is not too bad, given the fact that their car also did not have that engine replacement for this race weekend. They were worried about how it was going to affect them. Didn't seem to affect them all that much. Still got a lot of points in the weekend, and they can be very chuffed with that result, of course. Which then moves on to our final losers from yesterday, and pretty much losers for the season with regards to how they started so well and have dropped off significantly. As one of the other articles said just before we got to this, you can copy one car, but if you don't keep developing and understanding why they do all of this, it's not going to make it to the end of the season. And we've seen that with Aston Martin.
Well, I think they put a lot of money into developing the car before the season started, and I think that's where they went wrong. They needed to leave a lot of space to develop that car throughout the season, and that's something that they haven't done as frequently as all of the other teams. We've seen a lot of other teams bringing upgrades almost every second or third race weekend, and it's been very far and few in between for Aston Martin. And that is where throughout the season that you are going to lose a lot of pace to your competitors. Every single season has this, and we've seen it throughout the past, where you have to keep developing your car as much as possible. Of course, now we do have budget caps in Formula 1, which means that you can only develop up to a certain point within regards to how much you're able to spend, but you need to be clever in where you bring your upgrades and how you bring them. You need to do a lot of analysis of what the other teams are upgrading on their cars and see in which areas you need to develop. And I think one of the biggest areas that pretty much every single other team needs to develop and be able to catch up to Red Bull is their suspension.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think Aston Martin need to put some more thought into how they go about their season with regards to development as well as starting the season off. But I think they'll learn from the season. Next season, surely one imagines they'll be a little bit better. But of course, that depends on whether Mr. Stroll decides to hold on to his team or whether he does decide to sell it. As some people seem to rumor, I doubt very much he'll let the
I would be
team
very
go.
surprised if he does go on to let the team go. I wouldn't be surprised if he says, Lance, okay, your time is done in the team. Let's get someone else in there. Possibly because I think also one of the major issues at that team is they've got one really good driver who's, of course, coming to the end of his career, and another driver who doesn't really care. He's not really helping as much to develop that car from a feedback point of view, because I don't think he has the vast amounts of knowledge that a likes of Fernando Alonso has.
Well, I don't expect him to have the same amount of knowledge as Fernando Alonso, but I expect him to put in a lot more effort than
But that's
he's
the
been
thing.
doing. Yeah.
I don't think he has the drive that Fernando Alonso has to develop that car and get onto podiums. I'm sure, of course, he wants to get onto the podiums, but I don't see that drive and fire in Lance Stroll anymore.
No, not at all. And of course, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso could not finish the race yesterday. Alonso had a small issue which they tried to fix during that red flag, but they were unable to do so and retired his car. And Lance Stroll retired after he also made a bit of contact near the end of the race. A rather poor attempt at an overtake, or rather defensive. I think it was an overtake, rather. And both cars had to retire yesterday. But those were all of our winners and losers from the Grand Prix there. Old Man Rouge is saying a stellar drive by Lando, of course, marking his winning, his being a winner from yesterday's Grand Prix, and McLaren being so much better this year. Now, what do you think McLaren could do next year?
McLaren, I think they're going to... Well, we spoke about this a little bit already. I think they have a really good platform to start their development for next year. I'm sure they have already started developing that car. But I expect them to be able to have quite a lot of pace at the beginning of the season. Whether they're able to maintain that pace throughout the season, that is going to be the main question. It's really important, of course, as we've been speaking about, to maintain that amount of development and upgrades throughout the season, to keep consistent and keep putting the pressure on your other competitors in the sport. But I don't really know what we can expect from them. I'm hoping that they're going to be able to compete from the outset, but there's so many unknowns going into next season.
Exactly that. So, just wrapping up the show with one more topic, which we, of course, did get onto with regards to winners and losers from the weekend. That of Sergio Perez. But we do have one comment from Christian Horner, which we will just go and read about. But then we'll just have a small discussion about what Red Bull should do, where Perez could go if they decide to move him on, and basically what's going to happen for next season, I think, in general. So, Horner insisted that Perez's race-ending incident was not him to blame. So Sergio Perez's hopes of a third straight podium at his home race were dashed, of course, at the very first corner in the lap. So it's not been a season to remember for him, but Christian Horner went and said, on one side, elated to have won the race, keeping that winning momentum going, of course, with Max Verstappen, but on the other side, desperately disappointed with Checo, going for the lead of the race, a racing accident, down at turn 1. To go out on the first lap in front of your home crowd, really painful for him. He was really emotional, as you can imagine, but he is a racing driver. He had to go for it. You can't place the blame on any of the drivers. 3 into 1 is always going to be tough into one corner, and he had a rocket ship to start, probably his best start of the year, and he was going for it in front of his home crowd.
Yes, of course, I think you have to take into consideration it was Sergio Perez's home race. You're going to want to put on the best performance for your home crowd. You're going to want to try and get the race win. He saw the opportunity into turn 1. He went for it, and unfortunately it ended his race there. In turn 1, I think maybe, of course, in hindsight, you can say a million things, but possibly just thinking of it now, he should have tried to stay a little bit more alongside Charles Leclerc, not trying to overtake him, being a little bit more cautious. I think he should have realized that there was another car on his inside as well. That was why Charles Leclerc was so wide on the track. But all of this, as I say, is in hindsight. Christian Horner went on to say, of course it's tough for him, but he is our driver and we want him to achieve and what we know he is capable of. And we'll continue to support him and protect him. Once he was asked about all of the rumours swirling around the paddock regarding Sergio Perez's future at the team and in the sport. Of course, speaking about that, if he does get axed from Red Bull, could we see it happening next year, beginning of the season, before the season starts, or could we see that happening at the end of 2024 when his contract does come to an end?
See, the problem is this is why I say I don't think Perez will be changed for next season, simply because Christian Horner's got his own reputation on the line in terms of his statements he's made in the media, and he does hold those statements very true. He tries to hold on to what he says for as long as possible, and he's very good about that sort of thing, which is why I say they've been saying all year that they will protect Checo. They like Checo as a second driver. They want him there. And so I don't think they'll lose him for next season, but I think they'll judge him very harshly in all his races.
In that same breath, though, he has gone on to commend Daniel Ricciardo for a phenomenal weekend. He went on to say, "You couldn't fail to be impressed by Daniel this weekend. His qualifying was outstanding yesterday." Off of the back of that qualifying session, of course. He can take a lot of confidence coming back from the injury. He's had a tough time over the last couple of months sitting on the sidelines, but that's the Daniel Ricciardo that we are used to seeing. Confidence is such a thing in Formula 1. His confidence is coming up. Checo, though, on the other hand, we just need him to have that confidence-boosting result, and he could have had it today, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. I think, though, they are going to start getting really frustrated with Sergio Perez. He is in one of the most competitive cars on the grid, if not the most competitive car in Formula 1 history, and he's just not making the right calls in terms of where to place that car, what he does throughout the race weekend. I think possibly, of course, the car does develop in a way that may go on to suit your number one driver, but at the same time, you have to go, I am in this team. I can still push for the car to be developed and set up in a way that suits me.
Exactly that. So, I mean, I was very disappointed with Checo yesterday. I did think he was actually going to have a very good race if he just managed to get past that first lap, because he did easily have the best start of anybody.
100% had the best start of anybody.
It was arguably one of the best starts I've seen all season. He took basically 4 positions by the first corner. It was insane to have seen a start.
5 positions. He started in 5th.
That's what I say.
He got into P1.
Well, makes up 4 positions then to get into first. But yes, he started in 5th, which is brilliant. And he was ahead of everybody going into turn 1. He just turned way too early into Leclerc. So, unfortunate for him. I still think he does have the ability to really showcase his stuff. We saw it right at the beginning of the season. But his mentality, I think, was significantly hit when he suddenly realized he was fighting for a title. And I think he got scared by that the same way Leclerc might have got scared last season.
I kept seeing the momentum carrying from the beginning of the season, and where I really saw it drop off, as I'm sure everyone else saw it drop off, was in Monaco. It was his first crash of the season. He went into the wall in Monaco in turn 1, and ever since then, he has not been the same driver since.
No, not at all. So there's a big thing. That's why Christian Horner keeps going on about trying to get Checo's confidence back. They know it's been hit. They need to find a way to get it back. Problem is, they can't wait too long.
The problem is, as a team, you cannot yourself give that confidence back to your driver. He has to find that out on circuit. And one of the only ways for them to get that confidence back is to get back on the podium or a race win.
Exactly that. He needs to get on the podium. He's got 3 races to do it. We've got Brazil coming up this weekend. We've then got Las Vegas. Very, very, very
in 2 weeks' time, I think it is.
Yes, 2 weeks' time. Of course, we will have a race this weekend, then a week break. Mistaken. Yeah, it's this weekend, then a week break, then Las Vegas, and then Abu Dhabi after that. And everybody's very keen to see what happens in Las Vegas. But we've got Brazil before that. What can Lewis Hamilton do there? Of course, Lewis Hamilton loves Brazil. But that's the one thing that we have to look forward to this weekend.
Yes, certainly looking forward to Interlagos, where Lewis Hamilton is pretty much considered a citizen of that country. I think they have given him an honorary citizenship of Brazil. So he's going to be very, very competitive there. He loves that circuit, as is Max Verstappen. I think he's also going to be one to watch there. But I think just off the back of this weekend, Sergio Perez really does need to find his form again. I think this would have given him a major knock in his confidence yet again, especially in front of his home fans. We're really rooting for Sergio. We don't want to see him fall out of that seat. As much as we're saying we'd like to see other people who are more competitive in that seat, I'd really love to see the Checo of old get his confidence back and be able to fight with Max Verstappen. I was really, really looking forward to it at the beginning of the season, to get a really competitive drive from those two, because we saw a couple. I think we got a race win in Saudi Arabia for Sergio Perez at the beginning of the season. I think he had got about 3 race wins, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just really disappointing that so far he hasn't been able to show that form of old, and we're really hoping that he does find it once again. But that has been it for us here on the Forever Formula 1 podcast, speaking about all the paddock rumors and speaking about of news off the back of that Mexico Grand Prix this race weekend.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave us some comments that you want us to answer in the next few videos. Reece will, of course, be giving you all of the various shows coming up this week leading into the Mexican Grand Prix. But for now, I've been Reece. Tell you, that's going to be an interesting one. I've been Mark. Reece has been alongside me. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next time.
Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. My name is Reece. I'll be talking to you a little bit today about one of our channel partners, BITDEFENDER. BITDEFENDER is a global leader in cyber security. BITDEFENDER is committed to defending people all around the globe against cyber attacks, as well as to transform people's digital experiences. In the next 6 months, Forever Sports will be covering major tournaments such as the Rugby Championship, the Premier League, the remainder of the Formula 1 season, as well as embarking on the biggest Rugby World Cup YouTube campaign ever. To ensure that these are all a success, it is imperative that the Forever Sports channels and platforms remain uncompromised. And with Bitdefender, we can be assured that our cybersecurity needs are being taken care of. To read more on Bitdefender, please be sure to check the links in the description of our video. Once again, thank you very much to our partner, Bitdefender, for joining the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Sports. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubt over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the Sprint Shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the Sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, with 16 out of 19 wins this season, is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody, Stevie P here from Forever Sports, and I'm here to tell you about BOYLESPORTS, the official betting partner of Forever Sports. Across all of our channels, they are one of the leading betting companies in the world and have recently launched in South Africa with an amazing offering. You can get a 1,000 Rand welcome offer. For the rugby, they are giving you 25% payout boost up to 2,000 Rand on the Springboks winning the World Cup, as well as an extra 50 Rand bet when you stake 250 more on rugby during the Rugby World Cup. It is your one-stop betting shop. That is BOYLESPORTS. Come and join us in the community. Check the links in the description to sign up. Get yourself an account and make sure that you are winning big with BOYLESPORTS.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports for another daily live news video and quite a lot to talk about. Last night we heard the fact that the Chief Technical Officer of Mercedes and the Silver Arrows, Mike Elliott, has resigned from the team. Mercedes have parted ways with their Chief Technical Officer, Mike Elliott, after 11 years together. Elliott moved into the role 6 months ago, swapping positions with now Technical Director James Allison. His remit was to develop a technical strategy to renew the team's capability for the years ahead, after a difficult period where they have been comprehensively beaten by Red Bull. Mercedes say now that plan is in the process of delivery. And Elliott has declared to take a break from the sport in the coming months before deciding upon his next challenge. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff went on to say that Mike has become one of the pillars of the team's achievements over the past decade, and it is with mixed feelings that we say goodbye to him today. Mike is a fiercely intelligent technical brain and a great team player. He has made a strong contribution not just to winning race cars, but also to building the culture of our team. But on the other side, it is clear that he's ready for new adventures beyond Mercedes, so I know this is the right step for him to take too. He leaves the team today with our thanks for the effort, commitment, and expertise he has brought to the team over the past 11 years, and our very best wishes for the future. Elliott went on to add that it has been one of the great privileges of his career to be part of this Mercedes winning team. During my time, I have seen it grow from a group of people pulling together to win races, then a first championship to winning a record 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships. And I am proud to have made my contribution to that journey. Although the last 2 seasons have not seen us winning races in the manner we aspire to, they have tested us in many other ways and forced us to question our fundamental assumptions about how we deliver performance. During the past 6 months, I have enjoyed developing the technical strategy that we can provide the foundations of the team's next cycle of success. I've decided that now is the right time to make my next step beyond Mercedes. First to pause and take stock after 23 years of working flat out in the sport, and then to find my next challenge. I would like to thank my teammates for a fantastic 12 seasons together, and wish them every success for the years to come. It ends a 23-year tenure in Formula 1 for Elliott that began as an aerodynamicist in 2000, and then saw him fill a series of frontline roles. He progressed through the team as head of aerodynamics, then technology director and technical director before taking the CTO role in April. It remains unclear if Elliott will be replaced in the role, and Mercedes are currently second in the championship, 22 points clear of Ferrari with 3 Grand Prix to go. The team are already heavily focused on the 2024 car, with trackside chief Andrew Shovlin having already said that next year's machine will feature quite considerable changes as they look to return to their winning ways. Mercedes went and released a press release on their own website saying after 11 years, Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott paid a fond farewell to colleagues in Brackley, as he has chosen as he has chosen to depart with the team and begin the next chapter of his career beyond Mercedes. Since joining McLaren as an aerodynamicist in 2000, Mike has worked continuously in frontline roles in the sport for 23 seasons. As first head of aerodynamics, then technology director, and latterly as technical director. Mike has made a substantial contribution to the team's race and championship winning success from 2000 to 2023. Mike has been one of the pillars of the team's achievements over the past decade, explained Total. And it is with truly mixed feelings that we say goodbye to him today. Mike is a fiercely intelligent, technical brain and a great team player. He has made a strong contribution to not just race-winning cars, but also to building the culture of our team. But on the other side, it is clear he's ready for new adventures beyond Mercedes. So I know this is the right step for him to take too. He leaves the team today with our thanks for the effort, commitment and expertise that he has brought to the team over the past 11 years. Earlier this year, Mike moved into the role of Chief Technical Officer to Brackley, focusing on developing a technical strategy to renew the team's technical capability for the years ahead. Of course, we went on to read the majority of all of that, but really interesting to see that Chief Technical Officer, Mike Elliott, has now resigned from Mercedes and is focusing on his future ambitions and just taking a period of gardening leave before he does decide to move on further from that. So it will be very interesting to see if this will affect Mercedes' pace coming in the future, but I think they do have quite a strong team based back in Brackley, and they should have still a lot of members in their team with the expertise to be able to take over from the role of Mike Elliott. Whether we will see that CTO seat being refilled, we'll have to wait and see, but at the moment it is a little bit sad to see that person of Mike Elliott moving away from the sport, for now at least, but we will have to wait and see whether he does move on to another team in the Formula 1 grid or if he will move on to other motorsports or any other ventures from then onwards. But very interesting to have heard that. Moving on to the next article here, Max Verstappen will be hit with an eye-watering fee after his 2023 success. Max Verstappen's unparalleled success in 2023's Formula 1 season will lead to a record-breaking super license fee for his 2024 season. Max Verstappen is about to face a substantial financial consequence for his overwhelming success on the track in 2023. The Dutch driver, fresh off his 16th win in Formula 1, the Dutch driver, fresh off his 16th win of the season, is set to shell out a staggering €1 million fee to secure his super license for the 2024 season. Every Formula 1 driver is mandated to pay a set fee for their super license. In addition to a per-point charge base, every Formula 1 driver is mandated to pay a set fee for their super license annually, in addition to a per-point charged base. In addition to a per-point charge based on their performance in the previous season. For a driver like Verstappen, who has demonstrated unrivaled dominance on the track, this system translates to an eye-watering fee. As of the end of the Mexican Grand Prix in 2023, with 491 points under his belt, Verstappen will be required to pay over €1 million for his super license renewal in 2024. The super license fee for the upcoming season stands at €10,400 approximately, accompanied by an additional €2,100 for every point won in the previous season. This calculation brings Verstappen's total to a colossal €1,041,500, with the potential to climb even higher, possibly reaching €1.22 million, depending on his performance in the remaining 3 races of the season. This is really quite colossal for Max Verstappen, and an eye-watering figure, of course, if he does have to pay that for next season. Well, he will have to pay that, depending on how many more points he can get throughout the rest of the season. Verstappen is now chasing down an even higher race-winning victory number in terms of all of those victories throughout the season. He's already beaten the previous record in that number but he could even go on, I think, in his next race to equal Sebastian Vettel for his number of race wins throughout his driving career. Certainly quite phenomenal for Max Verstappen, but it does show sometimes there is a bit of a downside to having all of those race wins, because he now does have to pay a massive fee for his super license next year. But I'm sure that is just pocket change for Verstappen. Moving on to our next article here, Alonso has provided a decisive verdict on his Formula 1 retirement. Fernando Alonso has said that he doesn't have a date for when he might end his Formula 1 career, despite currently only being contracted until the end of 2024. The 42-year-old has raced in the sport since 2001, and barring a 2-year retirement announced in 2018, he has enjoyed over 20 years of racing at the highest level. He has won two World Championship titles in 2005 and 2006, and is currently sitting on 32 career race wins. Alonso's move has been a real career rejuvenator. The Spaniard is currently enjoying his best season since 2013, having scored 7 podiums to date. Now the Spaniard has revealed that this particular contract, which runs through to the end of 2024, may not be his final contract in Formula 1, despite being well into his 40s by then. I like being competitive, he said. I like being fast, and I hate to lose. So you see, it's not very hard to motivate me once I'm inside the car, he laughed. Maybe, I'm a bit weaker than I was when I was 20 years old, but when you age, when you age, you know your body way better. You know which training to do, when you feel tired, and what things to avoid, and that is how you make up for it. You make up for strength with wisdom. For now, I'm not thinking of retirement. I know I'm closing on my career, but for now, I don't see it. I don't have to put a date on to the end of my career. Certainly very good to hear that Fernando Alonso isn't putting a date to the end of his career just yet. We'd love to see him in Formula 1 for quite some time longer. Of course, he is getting a little bit older in years, but certainly not showing it out on track at the moment. Bit disappointing that his car that he has at the moment isn't necessarily as competitive as he would like. He did show in the beginning of the season that he was still extremely competitive, but unfortunately, due to the fact that the car hasn't been developed as fast as some of those other teams, it means that they have fallen down a little bit in the order in the latter part of this season. We're hoping that they're going to be able to pick up their pace next season to give Fernando Alonso a bit more of a competitive car, but at least for now, we're happy that Fernando Alonso isn't putting an end date to his Formula 1 career just yet. Of course, there are a lot of rumours going around at the moment about his retirement, and glad to see that he isn't putting an end date to that, as well as there's a few rumours going around that he may go on to move to Red Bull if Sergio Perez does go away from that team. But Mark and I did go on to say that that was a bit of a far-fetched rumour out there, as I see Mark is joining me there in the comment section. Do be sure to join Mark there in the comment section and drop a comment down there and let me know where you're watching from, and let me know who you are supporting for this upcoming Brazilian Grand Prix race weekend, which is set to be quite exciting. Looking though off the back of the Mexican Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo's success in that race could award a £50 million achievement for the AlphaTauri team. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner was impressed by Daniel Ricciardo's performance across the Mexican Grand Prix weekend, as the AlphaTauri driver seemed back to his old self. The Australian delivered a crucial 7th place finish in Mexico City, hoisting Red Bull's sister team from the bottom of the Constructors' Championship up into 8th place. If AlphaTauri can maintain their position, Ricciardo's points haul will earn the Italian team a whopping 2.8% increase in Formula 1 prize money, which roughly equates to £15 million, compared to if they finished plumb last. After missing 4 rounds due to a broken hand suffered in a crash at Zandvoort, Ricciardo returned to action for the United States Grand Prix in Austin. 1 week later in Mexico City, the Australian driver secured AlphaTauri's best result of the season so far. In qualifying, Ricciardo showed consistent pace around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez with his AT04, in and around the top 5 quickest throughout the session. In crunch time during Q3, Ricciardo put everything together and managed to finish 4th, out-qualifying the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, as well as both Mercedes in the process. After a strong race start, the 34-year-old found himself fending off a lightning-quick Mercedes being piloted by Lewis Hamilton before battling it out with George Russell on the final lap. Speaking after the race, Horner spoke to Sky Sports about his shock result from their sister team. "You couldn't fail to be impressed by Ricciardo this weekend," said Horner. "His qualifying was outstanding yesterday, and then he showed his maturity and experience and pace in the race. I think that fighting Mercedes in an AlphaTauri for the best result of the year, it was a great performance. This performance has come at a crucial time in the discussion about the immediate future of Red Bull's Formula 1 seats, with Perez missing out hugely after crashing out on the opening lap of the race in front of his home fans. Ricciardo, though, took this opportunity to impress the Red Bull employers in a return to his form. Just 3 races remain for Red Bull to evaluate their drivers, but it seems that Horner may be persuaded by Ricciardo's resilience. With just 3 races remaining on the 2023 calendar, time is ticking for Horner to decide if he wants to keep Perez on for another season or promote Ricciardo to become Max Verstappen's teammate. On regards with Checo, we just need to have him return his confidence. And he could have it today, but it wasn't to be," Horner continued. "But great to see Daniel looking like his old self. Had it not been for the red flag, he might have finished further up. He can take a lot of confidence coming back from his injury. He has had a rough time over the last couple of months, having to sit on the sidelines. But that is a Daniel that we're used to seeing. Ricciardo will be looking to impress his former team as Formula One heads to South America for the Brazilian Grand Prix. We're certainly looking forward to this Brazilian Grand Prix, and we're going to be waiting to see what Daniel Ricciardo can do in this race weekend after his return to form in the Mexican Grand Prix. Just looking now onto this Brazilian Grand Prix and looking at the race preview and predictions as well as betting odds and the schedule. Formula 1 heads to the Interlagos Circuit for the 2023 Brazilian Grand Prix. While Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in its thrilling series. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix marks the return of Formula 1 to the Autodromo José Carlos Pache circuit. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. In the 2023 edition of the race, Formula 1 witnessed Mercedes' dominance, with George Russell piloting the W13 car to victory in both the sprint race and the main Grand Prix race. Russell maintained his lead from the first lap to the 71st, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This triumph was instrumental in securing 3rd place for the Brackley team in the Constructors' title standings, behind Ferrari and Red Bull Racing. However, the landscape has shifted significantly as the 2023 season unfolds, with Red Bull and Max Verstappen asserting their dominance and wrapping up all titles in emphatic style. Nevertheless, there is still much at stake for the rest of the field, particularly Sergio Perez, whose home race at the Mexican Grand Prix ended abruptly after a collision with Charles Leclerc. Providing you with insight into the upcoming Grand Prix, we will look at the schedule as well as some of the sporting predictions. The 2023 Brazilian Grand Prix is set to span from November 3rd to November 5th, with various sessions and events scheduled over 3 days. On Friday, we have practice 1 at 11:30 track time, qualifying at 3 p.m. track time. And then, of course, on Saturday, we will have that sprint shootout at 11 a.m. track time and the sprint race at 3:30 track time. Then the main event on Sunday, November 5th, will be the Grand Prix at 2 p.m. track time. The Brazilian Grand Prix being the 20th race in the 2023 calendar, the Interlagos track is renowned for hosting thrilling and unforgettable races, making it one of the most demanding and exhilarating circuits on the Formula 1 calendar. This weekend's event will also feature the final sprint race weekend of the 2023 Formula 1 calendar. Red Bull has secured victory in 4 of the the 5 sprint races held so far, making them a strong contender for another sprint race win. The Milton Keynes team will also hope they can return to their winning ways as they remain without a win at the circuit since 2019. Also, the weekend will provide Lewis Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah 2021, with an opportunity to put an end to his winless run, as he hopes to ride the wave of Mercedes' recent success at the Brazilian Grand Prix. An interesting statistic that I've also seen is that the last race winner in every season has gone on to win the race winner of the I think it was the pole sitter of the Hungarian Grand Prix has gone on to win the Brazilian Grand Prix every year. So last year, George Russell went on to get pole at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and then he went on to win the Brazilian Grand Prix. This year, Lewis Hamilton went on to take pole at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So could we see him win the Brazilian Grand Prix? Looking at the Grand Prix predictions for this race weekend, Max Verstappen, with 16 wins out of 19 races this season, is the favourite to clinch his 17th victory. For your betting odds, our bookmakers have odds of 1.28 for the Dutch driver to win, with the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton having outsider odds of 10.0 for his first win since 2021. A redemption victory for Sergio Perez is offered at 15.0. The Brazilian Grand Prix features the 6th and final sprint race of the 2023 season. Verstappen, with a strong season performance so far, is favoured to win the Brazilian Grand Prix sprint, with bookmakers offering odds at 1.44. A sprint race win for Sergio Perez, on the other hand, carries odds of 21.0 and would significantly boost his confidence. Looking over a little bit at the characteristics of this circuit, Formula 1 heads into Interlagos next weekend, which is the shortest lap of the year after Monaco and Mexico. It is a historic track which runs anti-clockwise, also alternating in some quick actions as well as medium speed sequences of corners, such as the famous Senna S's. There aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking, as it is a very flowing layout. With a lack of slow corners, which means that the teams are able to control the degradation of the rear tyres, Brazil will host as well as the lack of slow corners means that the teams are able to control the degradation of the rear tyres. Brazil will host the sprint also this year, the last of the season, and it will be particularly interesting with the car package to see what will happen on the track, and once again the key role of differing strategies that can be used. In 2021, the Saturday was equally split between the drivers, starting on mediums and softs. Despite the short length of the sprint race, there's normally plenty of overtaking. Just think of Lewis Hamilton, who was the protagonist of a comeback that brought him to victory from 10th place, using a 2-stop strategy. So the new generation of cars and tyres seem to provide us with another thrilling race this year. Looking at the tyres that Pirelli are bringing this race weekend, they're bringing the C2, the C3 and the C4, so a step down from last race weekend in Mexico. Also looking at the weather predictions for this race weekend, it is set to be pretty much clear throughout the remainder of this race weekend, with some rain predicted for Friday, but Saturday is set to be 24 degrees with a low of 14. Sunday is a little bit cooler with 21 and a low of 14 as well. Friday is supposed to be relatively hot with a 30-degree temperature being predicted and a low of 20 degrees, but of course there is a bit of rain predicted as well for Friday. So that could provide some interesting characteristics and interesting track opportunities around there on Friday afternoon, but I think that could throw a little bit of a spanner into the works for the qualifying session, of course, on Friday evening. Just looking there into the comment section, Phyllis Rahim just saying, rumors said that Helmut Marko is to get fired, but the truth is Mark Elliott with a twist of fate. Yes, certainly a bit of a twist of fate there, not seeing Helmut Marko getting removed from that position in Red Bull, but Mike Elliott has decided to resign from Mercedes. But that is it from me here today. A little bit of a shorter one, unfortunately not too much news coming out at the moment in Formula 1, but certainly looking really excited ahead of this Grand Prix race weekend in Brazil. Lewis Hamilton is a bit of a it's a bit of a home race for him, as he is a honorary Brazilian citizen. He was given that last year ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. But certainly looking forward to this race weekend. I think it is going to be quite competitive, and we're going to see a lot of teams fighting it out for that top spot. I think a lot of teams should be relatively competitive around the circuit. We've got, of course, the Mercedes resurgence in the season. They've been quite quick, of course, in their race pace, as well as Ferrari seem to have found quite a bit more pace in the last couple of races, with, of course, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc being able to take pole position last race weekend out in Mexico. But we'll have to wait and see what does happen this race weekend. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Thank you very much for joining me. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American tripleheader with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubt over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit, located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the Sprint Shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, with 16 out of 19 wins this season, is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Welcome to Interlagos, home of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Formula 1 concludes its American triple header at the Autodromo José Carlos Pache. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has hosted an F1 race every year since 1990. After doubts over this track's future, it has now penned a contract to stay on the calendar until 2025. This circuit is a 4.3 kilometer long track made up of 15 corners and 2 DRS zones, which will see drivers lap the track 71 times on Sunday, as well as going racing on Saturday for the final sprint race of the 2023 season. The current lap record around the circuit is a 1 minute 10 seconds, set by Valtteri Bottas in 2018. Interlagos is a favourite for many Formula 1 drivers due to its technical layout, which sends drivers up and down over its undulating elevations throughout the lap, as well as due to the passionate fans that line the circuit grandstands, many of who will be cheering on Lewis Hamilton this weekend, who sees it as a home Grand Prix after he was given an honorary Brazilian citizenship before last year's race weekend. Qualifying around the circuit is crucial, as the pole sitter has gone on to win 16 times. This will put a lot of importance on getting your setup right in the single practice session on Friday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Based off of last year's race at this venue, a 2-stop strategy should be the best option for teams. With Pirelli bringing tyres in the middle of the range, this should mean that all 3 tyres are a good option for the race on Sunday and should provide us with some excitement with differing strategies between teams. The probability of a safety car around the circuit is 66%, which could throw a spanner in the works for team strategies on Sunday. Watch now as you get taken around a lap of the Interlagos circuit. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as well as give us your predictions for the weekend in the comment section. We hope to see you during our coverage of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubt over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the Sprint Shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the Sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, with 16 out of 19 wins this season, is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports. Joined by myself, Mark and Reece. We are now live for the Sprint Shootout, which gets going in just about 7 minutes and 35 seconds. Of course, we had qualifying yesterday. It is a sprint weekend here in Brazil. We had massive weather system yesterday. We recorded 107-kilometer winds. And we saw one of the main grandstands take quite a bit of a beating yesterday as a result of that weather and an early stoppage to qualifying, which is, of course, what caused the red flag as well as the end of the session early in qualifying yesterday. We won't have similar sort of things today. It'll be much better today. Yes. And we should be seeing a bit more realistic qualifying orders, of course, as we're looking at what is potentially an ideal order of Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Stroll, still up there in terms of his pace that's to be expected in qualifying or slash the shootout today. So very interesting to see what all the drivers will do today.
Yes, certainly going to be interesting to see what the drivers are able to do out today on track. Just a little bit more about what happened yesterday afternoon at the end of qualifying when we did have that massive big storm move its way over Interlagos Circuit. There was a few grandstands that were damaged, but fortunately, from what we're hearing, no spectators were injured from all of those incidents in the grandstands and in the crowds, but certainly not the safest situations to have fans being put up with. And hopefully the FIA and all of the officials do have a look at that into the future and maybe have some warning systems put into place for fans and spectators of the sport that come and watch around these circuits. But just getting underway for this session now, be sure to let us know who you're going to be supporting in the Sprint Shootout. It should be a little bit more fair today, of course, without this final session getting ruined by the weather, or any of these sessions shouldn't be getting ruined by the weather today. Who do we think should have the best pace out on track? Mark, I think you're looking at Lando.
Well, as I said, I've already said, and I said earlier there, that the ideal qualifying parts, in terms of they're looking at the supposed data that they've got in, and based off of that data, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen will be extremely close, but supposedly Lando Norris should be ever so slightly quicker than Max Verstappen. That would have been the ideal finishes in yesterday's qualifying. We would have seen Lando Norris, Verstappen, and then I think it was Charles Leclerc still up in third, Hamilton in fourth, and Stroll still up there in fifth. So I'm intrigued to see if the Aston Martins do still have that sort of pace today, if they can fight it out right near the top. We've been going at Aston Martin all season, well, towards the end of the season, of course, with regards to the lack of upgrades and they're falling off in terms of the points tally for the entire season. But yesterday did very well to get a third and fourth finish in qualifying. And maybe today in the Sprint Shootout, they could put themselves quite far ahead to maybe get some points.
Yes, and I'm certainly rooting with Margaret Moll there, the Dutch lady from Germany, who's rooting for Fernando Alonso. I certainly was a little bit surprised to see that he was out-qualified by his teammate yesterday. It's a tally of which the Fernando Alonso hasn't been beaten too much by his teammate Lance Stroll, but this weekend, Lance Stroll just had the upper hand. I think the upgrades on that Aston Martin car maybe fall more towards Lance Stroll's driving style, and that's maybe why he does have the upper hand at the moment in terms of pace.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens today with Alonso will outperform his teammate Lance Stroll, or whether Lance Stroll does once again do better than Fernando Alonso. So we've got just about 5 minutes or just under 5 minutes until Sprint Shootout gets going. So just letting you know one more time, the Sprint Shootout format. It's exactly the same as qualifying, except much shorter times
Yes.
in each session. So it's 12 minutes in the first session, 10 minutes in the second, and 8 minutes in the third session. Looking at the weather today, it's looking much sunnier than yesterday. Clouds, there are a few, but none of them look threatening at all, and most of it is blue skies. So it's looking like quite a nice day here in Sao Paulo,
much
Brazil.
more favorable for qualifying this afternoon than what we had yesterday. I think the teams are going to be able to get their proper run plans done at least, and not have to go out immediately in the session to try and get a lap done because they're scared about the rain.
Yeah, exactly. The scared about the rain was yesterday. We won't be scared about the rain today. So I'm hoping to see some AlphaTauri improvements for today in the sprint shootout. I think they were really disappointing yesterday, as were Alfa Romeo. And Alex Albon, I'm sure, is going to hopefully do a lot better than he did yesterday. Unfortunately, having his lap times decent, and also not having the best few laps when he was qualifying. So we'll hopefully see him into the final sprint shootout session. So we've got sprint shootout 1, 2, and 3 coming up for you just a bit. And in fact, let's go and change that poll right now. Just ending that poll, just to go and go to that was running. So who will top the sprint shootout overall? Verstappen winning 59% of the vote, other getting 25%, Leclerc only getting 7%, and Alonso also only getting 7%. Starting a new poll now, of course, for who will top SP1.
SP1, yes. As we look at a little bit of the stats around this circuit, the 21st of the 23 rounds in this Formula 1 calendar for 2023 will be getting underway this weekend and today with the sprint shootout now, and then the sprint race later on this afternoon, and then of course the main event tomorrow being the race, the Grand Prix around this 4.7 kilometer long circuit, 4.3 kilometer long circuit. Full throttle is spent at around 56% here, and the track lap record is a 1 minute and 7 seconds set by Lewis Hamilton. The top speed is at 338 kilometers an hour with 15 turns and an elevation of 42.9 meters. So quite a lot of up and down around the circuit. It makes it quite difficult for the drivers to get a flow around here, but once you do get that, then you really do get those lap times quite close to the top runners. The weather conditions around here today, 24 degrees Celsius, track temperature a lot higher with 45 degrees Celsius, humidity a lot lower than yesterday, 47%. So a lot less of a risk of rain here today.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have any rain effect in the session. So once again, 12 minutes will be the first session. So we'll have that up in just a couple of minutes. Of course, when it does get going, we'll have that green flag and then drivers will make their way out. There's quite a few members of the crowd out there, and I think they have managed to fix their grandstands. So all is ready, all is set for sprint shootout in Brazil in the third last race of the season. And Lindiwe is joining us in the comments, as is Noel, saying hello everybody, and hi everyone indeed. So hello everybody joining us. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below where you are tuning in from. If you are new, of course, and otherwise just ask us some questions and we'll answer them as best we can in between all of the action out on track.
Great to see a mixed amount of fans, and just looking at the mandatory tyres for these SQ sessions, SQ1 you have to run a set of mediums, SQ2 you also have to run those mediums, and then only for SQ3 do you get to run those soft tyres. I think this just allows teams to minimize the amount of wear that they get on those soft tyres, which they'll be wanting to use for the race on Sunday. And they just have to use those set of mediums here today, which they'll probably be using to run throughout the sprint race as well later on this afternoon.
Yes, exactly that. So it's just minimizing the amount of tyre wear and also making sure they use all of their tyres. As we look at those Constructors' Championship points, Ferrari and Mercedes still very close to each other. And we could see Ferrari try and overtake Mercedes towards the end of the season if, of course, Ferrari can get a few points, but it's Mercedes who are trailing to Ferrari through much of the season. Have only now recently overtaken them in these last few races.
George Russell will be taking a 2-place grid penalty on Sunday, though, for driving slowly at the pit exit and failing to follow regulations. So that is a bit of news that came out in the early hours of the morning while we were all sleeping. But as I said there, George Russell will be taking a 2-place grid penalty for the race on Sunday. The session is currently about to get underway, just a few minutes to get going. It's red flagged at the moment, Mark.
No, it's not. It is underway,
and
of course.
It is now underway, yes, as I see the green flag being shown. Just watching who's going to be getting out first. A little bit of work going on Lando Norris's headrest at the moment, so they'll be waiting a few more moments before they send him out.
Indeed. So it seems like everybody's sort of taking a little while to get out onto track. Nobody's actually getting out there yet. So for such a short session, very interesting to see everybody delaying the the entrance onto the track. It's a very short session. Everybody wants to make sure they do quite well, but I think at the same time, nobody wants to use up these tires too much. So what they want to do is minimize the number of times they want to go out. Of course, we are already a minute into the session. Nobody looks ready to get out there. No tire blankets are off. Crowd are waiting in anticipation, of course, for anybody to get out onto the track. We'll, of course, let you know exactly as soon as we see any car make their way out. Yeah, I think, it's going to be a good session when we do eventually get a car out on track.
Yes, just waiting for those first drivers to decide to get out there.
There we go. Max Verstappen goes.
Is one of those first to get out onto circuit on a set of fresh medium tyres. As so does Sergio Perez get out of his pit box behind Verstappen, so they'll just be giving each other a little bit of a tow in these first few runs. At least they have some pretty clean air out on circuit without any other drivers, but we do see the Ferrari.
Lots of fresh mediums being used, I'm noting. Very, very new mediums, of course, being opted for.
To be expected, I think.
Yeah. But do you think they'll use the new mediums again in the next session, or do you think they'll just they'll take these ones up again?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, indeed. So going to the comments here, Leonardo's joining us. Hello there. Any rain chances today? As we said earlier, there will be no rain scheduled for today. So we should have just a normal sprint qualifying session here. Of course, full throttle again, spent at 57%, so not as much as some tracks you do find. And we're looking here at all the drivers making their way out onto the track. Verstappen, Ocon, Perez, Gasly, Albon, and Leclerc, of course, all out on track right now. And do be sure to go and let us know in the comments who you're rooting for this weekend. Who do you think is going to top sprint qualify and go to participate in that poll that's got running right now? Verstappen now lines up and starts his first hot lap of the Sprint Shootout 1. I'm going to be following him very, very closely, as is his teammate, of course, who's starting to steal some some sectors away from Verstappen already. Look at this. Every single purple sector Verstappen sets, Perez has been taken away, except for just a couple now. And Verstappen puts the first sector time at 18.6, which is quite a bit slower. Of course, he's on the medium tyres, so is to be expected. And Perez is 0.1 seconds down already. Coming towards sector 2 is Max Verstappen. Now, let's see what sort of time he puts in there, as everybody else is also now starting their hot laps, following on those Red Bull times. Max Verstappen putting a lot of purple sectors in, which are not being beaten by Perez, of course, behind him. Verstappen now nearing towards the end of sector 2. And there we go. Perez now starting to get a couple of purple sectors away from his teammate. And a lot of drivers now starting their hot laps as well. Sainz gears up to start his. Max Verstappen puts 36.6 seconds in the second sector.
Leclerc has started his hot lap now, as Esteban Ocon has taken a purple mini sector in the first sector there, but so far no one being able to match that first sector just yet on Max Verstappen. 18.7 for Charles Leclerc, as Verstappen finishes his lap time up now with a 111.8. Relatively good. Carlos Sainz now faster in that first sector than Verstappen. Will he be able to match his second and third sector though? We'll have to keep watching.
I say Sainz with that purple first sector is very good, and he's getting purple mini sectors in sector 2. Which is great to see, and lots of purple mini sectors for a lot of drivers, so it's relatively even out there, I'd say, as Perez finished up his lap with a 112.2. Definitely not going to be quick enough, I think, to get through the session, so he needs to go out again, as Ocon now crosses the line at 112.3. I'm still following on those Ferraris to see what they can do. Go to the comments here. Pureblood's joining us again, and so is Naval, just saying that Max, Lando, and Charles is her prediction.
Carlos Sainz goes even faster in the middle sector with a 36.5 up on Max Verstappen's previous mini sector. That gets stolen now by Lewis Hamilton, who's also flying out on circuit. What can they do now through the final sector? This is where it really does count to be able to take that fastest time as Sainz crosses the line with a 111.7, takes that fastest spot away from Max Verstappen. Then Hamilton goes up into second with a 111.8.
Indeed, Hamilton and Sainz going quicker than Max Verstappen. Russell just missing out on that with a 111.9 now. He moves into fourth. Leclerc's there in fifth. He put in a 112.1. Again, I don't think it'll be quick enough. We don't have much time left, of course. Only one more lap. Basically, they'll have to go around the track again to put their best times in. We're seeing all those other drivers making their way out. We're wanting to see what the McLarens can do, as Piastri now lines up and starts his first hot lap of the day.
Relatively impressed by the pace of the Ferrari so far in this Sprint Shootout 1 session. Trying to get the name right there. But just looking where the two McLarens are, I see Piastri's on the hot lap now. He's got a purple mini sector in the second sector. 18.8 in his first sector there. Not necessarily amazing in that first sector as Alonso goes 18.7 in that first part. Stroll a little bit slower than himself, matching relatively what the McLaren or Piastri is doing. Lando Norris is also starting his first hot lap. So just waiting to see what all of them can do at the moment out on circuit. Sergio Perez also starting another hot lap now.
It looks like to be a double push lap for a lot of these cars. They're not going back into the pits, of course. There's not a lot of time in this session, so it might well be the case for quite a few drivers. As we do now see a few make their way into the pits, though, having said that. But maybe a couple just opting for the double push. So let's see what sort of times Piastri's putting in a 36.7 in Sector 2. That's not too far away from Carlos Sainz. As he finishes up his lap, 8th position only, a 112.3. So not brilliant from the McLaren driver. We expected a little bit faster than that. So following now, of course, with Lando Norris, what can he do as he approaches the end of Sector 2? What time has he put in a 36.6, quite a bit quicker than his teammate. And will he finish near the top there? Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen, obviously our top three. Could Norris go in between any of them? He's got a couple of purple sectors for himself, mini sectors that is, of course, as he comes around the final corner. Where does he put that McLaren of his? And he moves into only 5th, a 112.083. Still behind Russell, Verstappen, Hamilton, and Sainz. So there's 2 Mercedes in the top 4 already.
Hülkenberg moves himself now up into 7th place with a 112.1. Getting a little bit tight up there as Magnussen now also has some great lap time out there with a 112.058. Moving himself up into 5th ahead of Lando Norris's car for now.
Yeah, indeed.
Daniel Ricciardo as well, finishing up his lap. He gets himself up into the top 10 with also a 112.1.
Only 4 minutes and 45 seconds remaining in the session. And we see that quite a few big names are currently, maybe might be in danger as we get there. So looking at a replay here.
From, I think this is Oscar Piastri, yes, coming through the middle sector. Does he just go a little bit wide here? The car's bouncing a lot through the middle of the apex. Watching Max Verstappen getting out the way here for some traffic. What happens here? I think he's struggling with drive. Max Verstappen just asking if Sergio Perez was on a hot lap as he got in the way a little bit of his teammates, just getting a little bit upset with his engineer for not letting him know that Perez was on a hot lap.
Yeah, so Perez, unfortunately, I think that was a hot lap for himself. Then he's back into the pits now, so he's made his way back to the pits. Does he think he's safe? I definitely don't think he's safe down in 10th position as Piastri now starts another hot lap for himself, an 18.7 in Sector 1. So his first sector not too bad. His second sector, though, all yellow so far, so not looking great in the second sector. Perhaps he can make up a bit of time in the latter half of that sector there now. Not too many cars out on track. Few of them have made their way into the pits. Will they come out just before the end? I'm sure they will, just to ensure they get into the next shootout session as well.
Rajesh just asking what tyres are currently being run. It's the mediums, not the intermediates. Intermediates are for wet weather running. So we are currently on the medium set of tyres. Medium for SQ1, medium for SQ2, and then the softs will be used for SQ3.
Yeah, it looks like Piastri is probably going to have to abandon his laps. Gone quite slowly in Sector 2. Sector 3 also not going well. So not sure if he's going to make his way back to the pits very, very quickly just to maybe have a tyre change, or maybe he just wants to get a bit more fuel on board. He will apparently finish up his lap. A 112.6, so don't know why he finished up that lap unless he decided to try and start again. But he definitely needs to cool down. So Magnus on the radio, Reece.
Magnussen says, I've got something stuck on the left front wheel deflector. So interesting to hear that. Possibly a tear off or something from the fans in the grandstands. Hopefully that doesn't affect his car too much and he's able to continue running out on circuit. As we see a few other drivers starting on some outlaps. We have the Hamilton and Magnussen, or Hamilton and Russell rather, as well as Perez on an outlap now.
Yeah, Piastri's very much in danger of going out in this first session. He's currently down in 14th. He's made his way back around the track once again. I'm not sure if they put enough fuel in the car to go for a third push lap. He's definitely not going to have much time to get into the pits and then back out. So he really does need to make sure he nails his next lap here, hoping that he does have enough fuel for it. And Alonso now starting his new fast lap. He's currently down in 11th, not necessarily safe just yet, and not putting in too many personal bests in that sector there, and going slower than his best sector there in this session so far. So not looking great for a few of these drivers.
Tech is 318 has asked you a question there in the comment section, Mark, about Man United.
I have no idea. I am actually watching Formula 1 right now. I've given that up. Verstappen, I think, is going on a hot lap here. He's set a purple first sector there, and he's going in the second sector now. Not putting too many green or purple sectors in sector 2, as Norris now moves himself with the purple first sector.
just watching what Lando Norris can do throughout the remainder of his lap. I see another purple mini sector for him in the second sector, personal best now as well. So really going quite well in that second sector at the moment is Lando Norris. Max Verstappen not improving on his lap time all that much in the second sector though. So he pretty much will be stuck with third at the end of this session. Hopefully he'll be safe.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Max Verstappen will be safe. We've got another minute to go. Maybe he's given up on his lap and he's going to go for another push lap right at the end. He's just recharging right at the end. No, it seems like he's gone into the pits. So, no, he's not going to participate in the rest of the session. Looking at the other drivers, who's at risk right now? Norris is still finishing up his lap. He's coming around the final few corners. There's a yellow flag. There's a yellow flag being waved. Not sure who it's for. I think Ocon. Ocon indeed is off. Ocon is off.
Possibly.
Ocon is off. I think Ocon's off. Maybe he's not. Maybe it's just a bit of a delay. We've definitely got a yellow flag. It's not going... It's a red flag. It's a red flag in the session.
I think Ocon must be in the wall. We haven't seen it yet on the visuals, but we can see it on the tracker that Ocon is stuck on the track, as we're finally seeing on our visuals now what happened to Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, oh my word.
Big shunt for Esteban Ocon. Big shunt.
Well, the car actually doesn't look too damaged, but certainly
Rear
got a
wing
bit
is
of
destroyed.
Well, yeah, it's not gone well there for Alpine. Alpine engineers not looking happy. And the interesting thing is, of course, with this red flag with 33 seconds left in the session will not be resumed, one imagines. Ocon just saying to the team he's okay, which is good to hear. Alonso's definitely got damage here because he's
got a punch on the front left.
Yeah, his front left has definitely got a big punch to there. He's trying to make his way back.
That's going to really damage the floor, though.
Yeah, I was about to say, Alonso struggling his way back to the pits. Not sure what might have caused that. Maybe a bit of debris from Ocon's crash. Not great to see at all.
Yeah, it's a big impact, though, for Esteban Ocon. He's put a little bit of damage into his headrest, which is meant to take a little bit of G-forces off of the neck. But just looking at that rear wing, it's destroyed. That could also be a... Ooh, look at that wheel.
Yeah, no, that car's not looking in the best of space. With only 33 seconds left in the session, one imagines the session will not be resumed, which means that we've got some drivers who are out. Sargent and Albon will... Yeah, there you go. Race controls confirmed. SQ1 will not be resumed. That's the end of SQ1. As a result of Ocon's crash, he's out anyway in 16th. Stroll, after getting third place in qualifying yesterday, is out in this session in 17th position. Zhou in 18th. Alexander Albon and Logan Sargent in 19th and 20th. Those two Williams not doing well enough in this session. Very, very unfortunate for those two. Alex Albon was on a hot lap and unfortunately did not finish up.
Very interesting to see that the entire tyre has been peeled off the rim there on Ocon's car. I wonder how that happened. I wonder if it was a puncture.
Yeah, we're watching a replay now of Esteban Ocon. And then
there's contact apparently between Alonso and Ocon.
Oh dear, does Alonso and Ocon make contact? And Alonso tries to get out the way. Oh, he comes in on it.
Massive incident between those two.
That's going to be a penalty to Fernando Alonso.
No, I think Alonso was fine there. Ocon came veering over him. Well, very big incident.
That would explain why Alonso...
Let's watch Ocon's point of view as he comes through turn 1 clean. Turn 2 relatively on the line there.
Oh no,
he has a snap of understeer, corrects it, and then goes veering into Alonso. So not Alonso's fault.
Not anybody's. Oh, he goes and says idiot Fernando, but it's not Fernando's.
It's not Alonso's fault.
No, indeed. Fernando Alonso is quite close to the racing line, but is technically not on it. Ocon has a moment and then as a result goes into Fernando Alonso and puts a bit of damage on Fernando Alonso's car. So certainly going to be something interesting to investigate for the FIA. They're not usually something we see. Ocon and Alonso making contact. Alonso was off of the racing line, of course, but Ocon then just had a bit of a moment. Went into
Fernando Alonso's front left. You can see that's why now Fernando Alonso got that puncture. Alex Albon gets out of his car. He goes to get weighed in the FIA wave docks. Unfortunately, that's his day over.
Well, not his day over. He's still got the sprint later.
Of course, his qualifying, sprint qualifying over, that is, at least.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, let us know in the comments, guys. Who do you think's at fault there? Is it Ocon? Is it Alonso? Is it just a racing incident? Well, not a racing incident, I suppose. A qualifying incident.
It's a bit of a qualifying incident. Unfortunately, Ocon got that snap as he came through the CNSs, went to correct that, still stayed on the throttle, and then veered across Fernando Alonso's front and just made contact with his wheel ever so slightly, and that sent him veering off into the wall.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm not sure if Aston Martin are going to be able to deal with that damage. I'm not sure if they affected the suspension there as a result of that crash. Of course,
I don't think it should have, hopefully.
Yeah,
but
so
it may have damaged the floor.
Yeah, so of course we will have a delayed start to SQ2 as a result of that incident. They're going to go clear up the track, and then they will give us a start time for SQ2. Still trying to get the car off the track. Controllers, of course, noted an incident there involving cars. 31 Ocon and 14 Alonso noted for causing a collision. So they'll note that, and they'll go back to that after the session, I'm sure. Meanwhile, we'll continue with the rest of it.
Yes, just watching Esteban Ocon's car getting wheeled away now, it does have quite a lot of damage to the rear, so that looks like it may be a new gearbox for them in either the sprint race. They are looking at that front suspension of that car, Mark.
Yeah, as I said, it looks like there's a lot of work happening right now. It doesn't look to be too much damage, but they are frantically working to try and make sure the car is absolutely fine, making and checking for all damage. Maybe we've got a few parts they just need to take off and make sure everything is 100%. They're having a look at that suspension, as Reece says, and just screwing off some parts of the front of the car just to make sure they can ensure there's no cracks, there's no instability, and there's nothing that's being compromised too much in the car.
Disappointing for Fernando Alonso, because I thought their cars could have had some pace here today, and we're getting ready to get going for the SQ2 session when that does get going once they fix the barriers and everything. But hopefully they're able to get that car, Fernando Alonso's, sorted before the session gets underway.
Indeed, so we are going to end that poll, of course, that we had running for SQ1 in terms of who would top it in Sprint 1. Verstappen with 45% of the vote, and he did not finish at the top there. It was, in fact, I just want to go back to it. There you go. Carlos Sainz who finished that session at the top there. So very good for himself. In second was Norris, and third was Hamilton in the session. And for some reason, my stats... Oh, there you go. Yeah, the stats are there. Hamilton got 29%.
Norris with 15 and other with 10%.
So Norris and Hamilton, at least I did put there, and they were correct to have been in the top three, as was Verstappen, I suppose. Yeah, so yeah, the right three drivers, just in the wrong order.
Yes.
Well, actually, Sainz was there, so it wasn't Hamilton, rather. Yes, so going to the next poll, who will top SQ2? And we're going to have Carlos Sainz as one option. We're going to have Lando Norris as another. Of course, we're going to have Verstappen as one of them, and you can obviously let us know in the comments who is your other vote if you do happen to vote for that. Be sure to go participate in that new poll. Noel just saying it was due to the weather conditions yesterday in terms of Alonso going further up in the qualifying session, of course. So it's unlikely he'll finish that high in the race tomorrow. Alonso on the radio saying, yeah, but I guess a lot of damage. He went into me, I think, just regards to that incident from Esteban Ocon. Ocon calling Fernando Alonso out. Alonso very casually pretty much calling, saying he wasn't at fault. Ocon went into him. So, yeah, hopefully they will get that damage controlled for the next session, and hopefully he won't be too affected by it. Looking at that car, though, very much in a poor state there for Esteban Ocon. Looking at Logan Sargent here, was he impeded a little bit? I think he was. I think he's going to complain about it.
He may have been a little bit. That other car may have just been on the apex through there. Haas did, he says, get in his way a little bit there. Just watching him through the rest of the final sector, yeah, unfortunately he would have lost quite a bit of time through there. Carlos Sainz, currently the fastest driver out on circuit with a 1:11.7. He's able to hold on to that top spot, but for how long?
Indeed, exactly. Can he hold on to that top spot there? The Ferraris, Charles Leclerc was only down in 7th. Sainz was up in 1st. I'm hoping the Ferraris will get a bit of pace. Maybe they'll be fine. But Max Verstappen, of course, will come back at that. I'm sure the Mercedes will as well. The wind is blowing still in Brazil, but it's not going to have any effect by the weather. Weather will not affect our session. We still haven't got a restart time in SQ2 quite just yet. Still waiting for the resumption of SQ2 and this sprint shootout session. It's just waiting for that damage now to that wall to be repaired and to make sure that the integrity is back, and then we will get going again. Going to the comments here as well. We've got why is there a red flag? We've already explained this. Can you put a poll? No, let's not do that.
Incidents involving George Russell, Norris, Piastri, and Ocon will be investigated after the session for failing to follow race directors' instructions for a maximum delta time.
So that means, of course, they went too quickly around the track. They went
too slowly. Maximum delta
Ah,
time.
yes, maximum delta time indeed. So yeah, going too slowly around the track, they will be investigated for that. Those are big names to be investigated, of course. Russell, Norris, Piastri, Ocon. Ocon won't be too much.
No,
I
of course,
think,
Ocon is
because
out
he's
of the
down.
session,
He's out.
unfortunately.
But yes, so people just saying, and I've seen Jeffrey say this a few times, try not to spam the same question. We've seen the question. We've had this chat many times this season, of course, with regards to wanting to see more women in F1, and we are starting to see it. Some more women are starting to make their way into drivers' academies, and we'd love to see.
Well, we
a
do
female
have the
driver
Formula
in.
One Driver Academy series now as a part of the Formula One feeder series. Just watching a replay of this crash between Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, he goes way off the line there. You can see he's quite far off the line. He's left enough space on the
But he
racing
comes
line.
back onto the racing line. That's the interesting thing they're looking at. They're
Ever
looking at
so
the fact that he
slightly.
turns his car now left. You can see he's pointing left now, and that's what's probably going to...
But because he's expecting the Alpine to stay on that curb.
Yeah, indeed. A little bit of an early decision there from Fernando Alonso. Maybe a bit too early a decision, but it's going to be an interesting one to see whether they do put the fault on Fernando Alonso.
Just looking at Esteban Ocon, though, I agree with, I think it's Will Buxton there saying it's his own mistake. You're supposed to essentially hug that curb throughout the entire left-hander into that DRS straight. And he just gets a little bit too hard and too far onto the curb. There's a little bit of a raised edge, which can upset you, and that gives him that little snap of understeer. Then he tries to correct it, then sends him veering into Fernando Alonso. So, disappointing and a bit of a freak incident there for those two, but I think it will be deemed a racing incident, or a qualifying incident, that is.
Yeah, I think it'll be... I don't feel you can punish Alonso for that, because Ocon made the mistake into the corner and went into him. If Ocon had not made a mistake, we wouldn't be talking about anything right now. Alonso would just have carried on as normal, and Ocon would have also carried on as normal. So the fact that Ocon made a mistake and went into Alonso, even though Alonso did then start turning his car back onto the racing line, he would have assumed that Ocon would have gone past him quicker than that.
And that incident between Ocon and Alonso will be investigated after the session, so no more decisions will be
investigation
made
right
about
now,
that right now. Yes.
They're going to move on to SQ2, and of course, SQ2 will get going in just a bit. It's only 10 minutes long, SQ2. We will get that up for you as well. It's not got a start time just yet, so we're still waiting for that start time to be given. It will be, of course, 10 minutes long, so getting ready, of course, to go and start that countdown as and when we find out when SQ2 will start.
Yes, so just waiting for that confirmation of the SQ2 start time, and then we will, of course, let all of you know. Just watching some replays and some visuals here of Daniel Ricciardo. He's currently out and up in P9. Well, not out, but out of the bottom, and he's up in P9 right now. Relatively good lap time compared to his teammate Yuki Tsunoda down in 15th.
Yeah, very, very good for Daniel Ricciardo up in 9th. Hopefully he can hold on to that. If he can get into the third sprint shootout session, he might be looking at points in the sprint race itself. As we've seen the Brazilian fans really enjoying themselves whilst they wait for this SQ2 session. There's zip lines around the track. There's a whole...
What an interesting way to get some visuals of the circuit.
But I think that would be quite an interesting one to go down the zip line with a camera and take some pictures and videos of the cars. Maybe you really fly down it and you try to match the pace of the cars. You're never going to be able to, but it would be quite fun. It's looking a much better day.
It's now Sao Paulo, as the P has been blown away from last night's storm on one of those grandstands. Fernando Alonso out of his car at the moment because there is a lot of work going on there because his front tyre was a little bit damaged. I think they're checking the suspension as well to make sure that wasn't too damaged. Maybe also just changing out those parts just in case.
Yes, Toronto ahead, same. Mercedes look a little bit slower than yesterday. I don't think so. Up in 3rd and 5th, they're looking fine. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. The Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso doesn't look to be in too bad of shape. I think they're finishing up those repairs. They seem to have done it quite quickly. Yeah,
they only got caught on the tyre really by Esteban Ocon's car.
Yes, and just a little bit of a fact for everybody. The full name for Charles Leclerc is Charles-Marc Hervé Percival Leclerc.
Yes.
So what a name. What a name. Of course, he speaks 3 languages, English, French, and Italian. He is fluent in all 3. He does live in Monaco. That's to be expected, basically. Those are the 3 languages
And
spoken
his
there.
childhood hero was Ayrton Senna.
Ayrton Senna. Indeed, who is the Brazilian F1 legend. And there's a few corners named after him at the track, of course.
Well, there's the Senna S's, of
Yes.
course.
And there is a big, big art piece there of Ayrton Senna with a trophy in hand in that uniform, of course. It's McLaren, yes, it is the McLaren uniform. Just making sure before I could say it. Lewis Hamilton's gap to science in that first shootout session rather was 0.074 seconds. So hence, I don't think the Mercedes are looking that slow, considering they were so close to the top of the quickest time in that session. So no, I don't back the comment that they're looking a little bit slower. They are, of course, on mediums, so everybody's looking a little bit slower than yesterday when everyone was on softs.
Yes, and a lot of teams didn't necessarily run on the mediums. The Red Bulls certainly haven't had a chance to run on the mediums as of yet. So a lot of people still getting comfortable on those tyres. We're still waiting for a start time for this next session, but we should be getting underway relatively shortly.
Yeah, we're just waiting for that wall just to be fixed up a little bit and to make sure that there's nothing that's going to ruin the integrity of that wall in terms of danger, and they're making sure that the driver's safety is at the forefront of their thoughts. So just waiting for that to, of course, get finalized, and then we will have the start of SQ2, I'm sure, very shortly. I imagine we'll probably get going by about past.
Yes, I'm certainly hoping we will be able to get out onto track shortly for the SQ2 session. I'm certainly looking forward to the sprint race this afternoon. I love the circuit. It always provides some great races and some differing results, I think, as well.
Well, Andrew disagrees with you, of course, because he said Ocon ruined his car in a pointless sprint shootout.
Yeah, but that's not the circuit's fault.
No, it's not the circuit's fault. No, not at all. I just watching once again for Fernando Alonso. He was on the racing line, gets off the racing line, then starts to go back onto the racing line as Ocon comes past him. That's going to be an interesting thing for the FIA to see. You see, because problem is, depends on what you're trying to think. Because on one hand, you've got Ocon making a mistake.
From Ocon's point of view, there's a lot of space. There is a lot of space. There's at least 2 car lengths, or at least 2 cars widths worth of space. Sorry.
Or maybe 1.5 at least, but certainly enough space. And I think it's going to be about what the FIA think in terms of whose side they're going to take. Because one looks at it, Ocon making a mistake going into Alonso. The other will look at it and say, well, Alonso starts turning in back on the racing line. And when somebody's on a hot lap, you should give them more space, of course. You know, they're going to say you should be right to the edge of the track there. And you can argue for both sides of it. Quite frankly, Ocon makes a mistake. Nothing would have happened if Ocon had not made a mistake. If Alonso was further out, I still think there could have been danger of something happening. So that's my view of it.
Yes, I agree, and I think it's a bit of a racing incident, a freak incident, really. As we see Liam Lawson here this race weekend, watching on over Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, I say looking at Yuki Tsunoda's car there, of course, and yeah, so I don't think Yuki Tsunoda is going to be smiling too much right now. Down in 15th, he needs to do a little bit better at Sprint Shootout 2 because he's got to try and outperform his teammate Ricciardo. If he doesn't outperform him in the sprint and the sprint shootout itself, questions will always be brought up more and more and more as to whether Yuki Tsunoda should still be, at the end of the day, in the sport. Not necessarily because he should be in the sport, but more because there are better drivers in his team that could certainly be taking his position. And he is really starting to become a bit painful with his immaturity and his shouting at engineers and otherwise. So it's certainly something interesting to watch as to what happens with Yuki Tsunoda for the last few races of the season.
It looks like George Russell's getting out of his Mercedes there. Watching on with Oscar Piastri, he's looking relatively calm and collected. Still strapped in his car, ready to go out on circuit. But what can the McLarens do here? They look quite quick with Norris, but Piastri...
Piastri, unfortunately, was very far off the pace in that session, and he wasn't looking brilliant yesterday
but possibly
either.
because his second run was compromised.
Maybe it's the same as the qualifying session yesterday. His run was compromised quite significantly, of course. So, we might find that he'll be fine in this next few sessions. But, Lando Norris much further up the field than Piastri, so hopefully Piastri will do a lot better in session 2.
Yes, just looking at the crowd there, nice to see that they're all a little bit mixed in terms of who they support out there. A lot of Mercedes fans, a lot of McLaren fans, Ferrari fans, Red Bulls, you name it, they're out there. So really just great to see Formula One fans lining a circuit again. Of course, this has been a triple header. Just waiting for the session to get resumed. But listening with Logan Sargent, not necessarily happy to be relegated down to the bottom spot again, but unfortunately that is the pace of their car.
Well, I think the biggest problem there, of course, is he talks about the Haas getting on the racing line there a little bit, maybe infringing on his lap. Not too much. Yes, he couldn't have come early onto that apex as he might well have liked. Would have thrown off ever so slightly. But, that's why you've got a long session. The whole point is you've got 12 minutes to go and put in as many, if not your best lap as possible. You've got to take into consideration the fact that people might well get in your way. And if people do get in your way, that's the sort of thing that's going to happen. As we're seeing a football match take place very close to the circuit here in Sao Paulo. Of course, Brazil, very famous footballing nation. Not too far away from the circuit, and they're
Probably
having a good
about
game.
a kilometre away from the circuit, if that.
Yeah, so not
They've got a
unexpected,
great
of course.
soundtrack, at least in the background, for
Yes.
Formula One cars.
Indeed. So could be worse. You could be, of course, playing on it. They were playing on a grass pitch as well, so at least it was looking a little bit better with the sounds of Formula One in the background. Looking at Carlos Sainz, of course, he was the quickest driver in that session. Will he be the quickest driver in the next session? He's currently in that poll. Be sure to go and participate in that poll if you haven't already. Let's go and see the current standings in that poll. Apparently, I can't have a look on my phone. Gonna go look here. Right now, we see Max Verstappen sitting with 37% of the vote, Other with 28%, Norris with 24%, and Sainz with only 10%. So people reckon that Sainz is the least likely of our options to be the fastest in this next session, even though he was fastest in Sprint Shootout 1. So, interesting.
Fun fact about Pierre Gasly, he loves pandas, apparently. Thank you, Formula One, for that.
He does love pandas. No, he does love pandas. And the only reason I do know is because I think he had a special helmet that had some pandas on it. If I seem to remember correctly. Okay. Looking at George Russell, a completely separate topic, he's currently sitting 8th. He's 8th in the Drivers' Championship. He's out of the car, as he says, just getting bored of waiting, I think, for the session to resume. He's only 8th. I mean, is that good enough for a Mercedes driver?
Say again? Sorry.
He's 8th in the Drivers' Championship. Is that good enough for a Mercedes driver?
No. In the championship or currently... Oh, yeah.
Drivers' Championship.
Drivers' Championship 8th. I don't necessarily think when your teammate is up in 2nd, or almost in 2nd, he's in 3rd at the moment. I think you should be a little bit higher up in terms of the points. But of course, they had a really tough start to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, exactly that. Looking here at a big poster of... I have absolutely no idea.
Senna.
We're assuming it is Senna, so it's just it's just because all they're shaking around the material a lot. You can't really read it. It says Obrigado Senna. Now that we can see that, of course. Yeah, an absolute legend, and he's honoured and worshipped in Brazilian motorsport world. And we see that special helmet of Lewis Hamilton with the Brazilian flag, of course. He's also got a very special place in a lot of Brazilian fans' hearts. Honorary citizen of Brazil is Lewis Hamilton. He loves Brazil as well, loves the fan base there. They're still working on Fernando Alonso's car, as we see in the pits there. Somebody's got his legs up in the air as he's in the driver's seat, trying to
He's working on the brakes.
Yeah, indeed. So it's a very interesting angle
going on. That is not something that we often see on a Formula One car. Literally a guy upside down in the cockpit of the car facing backwards. Very interesting, that. But I just heard a little bit there from Alex Albon. He has felt that he hasn't had the pace all weekend and was relatively happy with his first lap in sprint qualifying, but was caught out by the red flag in his second run, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Pureblood also just confirming with us what we thought. He's giving his comments, or their comments rather, Ocon would have crashed into the barrier even if Alonso was not there. I'm not sure he would have crashed into the barrier, but he certainly would have stuffed up his lap and would have gone probably off the track a little bit before coming back onto it. So I definitely think a big mistake from Ocon, which resulted in Alonso getting a bit of damage there. Not sure they'll look into it much more than that. I'm hoping they won't. They shouldn't give penalties for that incident. I think no driver is particularly at fault. Making a mistake is absolutely fine. You're allowed to make a mistake from Ocon. But Fernando Alonso was off the racing line. And just because Ocon made a mistake and went into him doesn't mean that Alonso is now suddenly at fault.
No, I don't think so either. I think Alonso was well off the racing line, at least at that point when Ocon should have come past. The fact that he had that little twitch was very unfortunate and has taken him out of the session and possibly even Alonso, unfortunately.
What I'm very confused about is we still don't have a start time here for SQ2. I mean, the barriers haven't really... I mean, they've been working on that part of the track for ages now. Surely should have been fixed by now. Surely we should be ready for SQ2. But we haven't got a start time yet. We haven't got any confirmation that that's going to get going in anytime soon. Alonso's car's still being worked on. So lots of drivers are out of their cars. People are bored. Jonathan Wheatley looks a bit bored. He's the sporting director for Red Bull Racing. He's just chilling there, pretty much just waiting. I think everybody's just playing the waiting game right now. There's not much we can do other than wait. Looking at those parts of the track. They're not seeing any of the barriers that are being worked on. That's just the go-kart track, of course.
Gosh, that medical helicopter gave me a bit of a fright. I thought it was coming in a bit low over the trees, but it was just the angle. Joe Guan Yu currently chatting to journalists. He's only down in 18th now. He's out of that first sprint session. I still think we need to have a bit of a look at these sprint weekend formats and possibly just bringing in a reverse grid, possibly even a top 5 get relegated down to the bottom, and then we have 6th onwards being your start. I mean, just try and make it a little bit different.
Put it this way, I certainly think qualifying should affect both, some way or another. That you have qualifying for the race, which is also at the same time qualifying for the sprint, but you then of course change what you do in the sprint with regards to those qualifying results. You have to make it interesting. Make it so if you've got a really, really powerful car in Red Bull, showcase your start. We finally have confirmation that SQ2 will start at 11:40 local
4 minutes time.
Yeah, so in 4 minutes time we'll have the start of SQ2. Finally have confirmation of that. Going back to what a sprint weekend could be and perhaps should be. You know, at the end of the day, my thing is that if you've got a really, really powerful car like Red Bull have at the moment, you know, strut your stuff. Show that it's that powerful, that you can make overtakes, that you can get past these cars. Show how powerful it is. Give the advantage to the powerful car in terms of making overtakes. You know, that's what people want to see. They want to see racing. They don't want to see somebody go and set fast laps. Nobody wants to see that at the end of the day. They don't want to see somebody going. They want to see people side by side going alongside each other with the risk of going into each other, making sure they can see who can outmaneuver the next. And by having a reverse grid, you see that. You see those powerful cars work their way through the grid in a sprint weekend. Give it to us. Give those reverse grids to us. Make it interesting. Have a single qualifying session. And at that single qualifying session determines a reverse start for a sprint and a normal start for the race itself. And give points for overtakes. It's very simple. And then, of course, points for finishing further up the field. But by doing so, you allow drivers to race.
Yes.
Essentially.
And I agree with Andrew there, saying option 1, have the Grand Prix quali also double as a sprint quali. I agree with that because having 2 qualifying sessions does get a little bit boring because it often is just a copy and paste.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was saying make the qualifying session for both and then just change up what you do with regards to the results in that one session for both races. So hence, have the qualifying. Whoever's top of qualifying will start the race, obviously, at the top of qualifying, but we'll start the sprint right at the bottom. You know, that would be making it interesting.
Relatively interesting to see the fact that Lance Stroll is out of this session. He's all the way down in P17, and his teammate has been able to find a bit more pace and been able to keep himself in the session up in P11. Of course, we have to wait and see if they're able to fix that car in time for this next sprint qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, it's all eyes on Alonso's car. That's the only one that's had a bit of damage from that first session that's still in the session. Of course, Ocon's out, so it wouldn't have mattered too much, and that car is very much finished. There's no ways they're going to get him back in for this session, and maybe not even for the sprint later. There's a lot of damage to that car.
I was thinking the same thing. Maybe they might just call it a day for today and just get the car ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, but we still have 15 drivers to rate it out in SQ2, which is only 10 minutes long. It's going to get going in just under 2 minutes. We're not too far away from that start time. And as soon as we get that start time, we'll start our counter. And we'll finally have some action again.
That poor engineer is still upside down in the Aston Martin car.
He might be stuck.
He might be getting a headache by now.
I think he might be stuck, and nobody's hearing his calls for help. He's saying, help, help, and it's so loud, and then nobody's helping him out, and he just can't seemingly get out. So
I'm sure he's fine.
I know. Just making some jokes, making some content. We're still waiting for this SQ2 session to get underway. At least we do have a start time. We'll get going in just about a minute now from now. So let us know, of course, in the comments what you think is going to happen in SQ2. Do you think we'll have any further instance where you red flags or people going into each other, or do you think that's done for the day? 10 minutes. Do you think Alonso will be able to get back out into the track in time, or do you think his car's got too much damage? Looking at that Ferrari garage of Carlos Sainz, they're getting ready to put him out. They're getting everything taken away from the car. All the data mapping is being taken off the car. They're getting ready to take those blankets off the car as well. And we see already their movement from the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. He's making his way to the end of the pit lane, ready to start SQ2.
Yes, we have about 25 seconds to go until the session does get green flag. The 2 Mercedes also pull the trigger to get out there. Once again, we are going to be using medium tyres for this. Stash and Max Verstappen waiting at the end there. We have 10 seconds to go now till the start of the session. I'll count you down, Mark, to start the timer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, And we are green now for that SQ2 session. Who will top it now for this sprint qualifying?
Exactly. Max Verstappen's leading everybody out. Of course, he's the first car out on track. So let's see what sort of times he'll put in immediately. And yeah, I mean, going to the comments there, Andrew also giving his second option. They're saying, get rid of the sprint. We know you don't like the sprint. He says there's too many of them. He doesn't mind the occasional. There's too many of them. Frankly, I don't mind having more sprints. I mean, I know a lot of people who say, oh, no, we want just the normal Grand Prix. I like the concept of the sprint, but then make it not just another race. The fact that it's just a short race where, again, you have the same bunch of drivers right at the top, that for me makes it pointless. That for me makes it a pointless thing to have. When you have a sprint race and you've got the same drivers fighting at the top of the sprint race, what's the point? That's why I say have a single qualifying session and then reverse the grid. It makes it far more exciting. And then everybody will be like, yes, we're all for the sprints, because you'll see so much excitement in seeing those Red Bulls right at the back of the grid, overtaking everybody, as it looks like Alonso's not going to be able to get out for the second session. He's walking away from the pit lane. He's signing a few things for a few people. So his day is unfortunately done. Very, very disappointing for Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin, who did so well in qualifying yesterday as a result of that red flag early. Got third and fourth, respectively, and they're both of them now out of the session.
Alonso then will be starting
In 15th.
from 15th, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah, 15th position as Max Verstappen now starts the first hot lap of SQ2.
Yes, as you say, Verstappen does now start his first push lap of SQ2 on the mediums. Yet again, it does look like they've continued with some scrub sets of mediums. I don't think those look like brand new ones. He goes fastest in the first sector, an 18.5. Perez a little bit quicker there in the first half there. Will he be faster though throughout that first sector? We will have to wait and see. I do think he's going to be.
But
No, he's
only
not.
just down on Max Verstappen's time, an 18.53 versus Max Verstappen's 18.52. So very, very close together are the two of them, although Perez is stealing some more purple sectors away from Verstappen in the second sector.
Just looking at some other drivers out on the circuit at the moment as well. Hamilton also starting his hot lap in 18.6 in the first sector there. Lando Norris also starting a hot lap now. Carlos Sainz on an out lap, as is Charles Leclerc. So a lot of drivers about to start some laps.
Yeah,
Max Verstappen though faster once again in the middle sector, 36.2.
Well, he will be the quickest in the first sector at the moment. Of course, it's the first one setting our fast times. The McLarens are out much earlier than they were in SQ1, so I think that's probably the reason why. As Max Verstappen finishes up his lap there with a 111.4. A bit quicker than we saw in SQ2. I think we can still go a little bit quicker than that. Perez finishes at 111.6. So let's see what the other drivers can do in comparison to that. Lando Norris is going quite well right now. He's quite down in the first sector to Max Verstappen's time. Let's see what he does in SQ2.
Hamilton finishes up his lap. He doesn't go faster than those two Red Bulls. Stays down in third with a 111.9. As George Russell comes through that final sector. Now, where does he put himself as he comes around the final two corners now? Just waiting for him to cross the line. He comes through that final corner now. He puts himself up in fourth, just behind his teammate by 0.007 seconds.
So I'll say very, very, very close. Just Norris now crosses the line, 11.9, and he goes ahead of those two Mercedes cars, but still behind those Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Piastri finishes up his lap much, much closer to those Red Bulls. He's literally very, very close to the back of Perez, 111.6 as well.
Splits the two McLarens now with a 111.7. Good pace from his Haas vehicle.
I was about to say, and Magnussen now crosses the line. Where does he move himself? He's been doing relatively well into sixth and 111.913. So those two Mercedes, the slowest cars out on track at the moment.
Well, what can the two Ferraris do now as they're coming up to finish up their lap? Charles Leclerc will be the first driver to cross the line. Where will he put his Ferrari? Only third for now. Carlos Sainz coming through the final sector as well. Will he be able to challenge his teammate? I don't necessarily think so.
I think he's very close to Max Verstappen's time, so he might be able to. He's getting very close to Charles Leclerc's time. He might move into second. He does move into second. A 111.581. So great drive there from Carlos Sainz. Still not quite at the top there, but certainly getting himself into a more secure position to get himself into shootout 3.
And we're hopefully going to see these two McLarens find a little bit more pace. They were tipped to have the best pace out on circuit, but so far, not really.
No, I mean, it's disappointing to see them not quite reaching what we hope is their potential. They've still got another 5 minutes left in this session to go and do another fast lap. Maybe they can find some more pace. Maybe they had some old medium tires there and they could find a lot more pace. in this one. I reckon they'll have quite a lot more pace if they do get into SQ3 with regards to soft tyres as well. So 5 drivers did not make their way out of the pits in those first 5 minutes. It's Yuki Tsunoda, Bottas, Gasly, Alonso, Ricciardo. We will not see Alonso, of course. He's got too much damage to the car. But the other 4 drivers have yet to make their way out. So intrigued to see when they're released. There you go. Pierre Gasly now being released in his Alpine. The last remaining Alpine, of course, Ocon is out of the session after crashing into Fernando Alonso in SQ1.
Brand new set of medium tyres for Pierre Gasly now as he gets ready to be released from his garage, just waiting for the engineer to let him go. Under 5 minutes left now, 4 minutes and 30 seconds are what remains of the session. Looking at Charles Leclerc coming through the middle sector there, he has a lot of oversteer. Does he get held up by this Red Bull? Not really, I don't think. He comes onto the radio though and says, come on, the Red Bull was in the way. It's not great what he did. I thought the Red Bull was relatively fine off the
I don't think he's necessarily saying it's in the way. I think he's just saying that he's a bit too close. You see, he comes very close to the racing line before then coming back onto it. So maybe just put Charles Leclerc off. That's why he said he didn't say he got in the way. He said, it's not great what he did there in terms of maybe just putting him off ever so slightly in the track. So yeah, Charles Leclerc not too happy with that, but he's still up and forth. He could be safe.
He is now getting weighed by the FIA. So just for further measure, he's going to be slowed down if he wants to get another lap time in.
Yeah, I mean, really, really not ideal situation at all for Charles Leclerc, and he's waiting for this to finish, and he gets off the weighing part there, and he gets rolled back to the pits, of course. So looking at the 5 drivers that have yet to make their way out, they're still not making their way out yet. Anybody is waiting for everybody else. Everybody's in the pits, and we'll have a lot of movement right at the end there. Yuki Tsunoda, one of those as well. Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate next to him, also waiting and rearing to go out. They're waiting to have these tyre blankets removed completely for Daniel Ricciardo's car. So clearly, there you go. Now we see those blankets being slightly removed. I think there's a lot of movement. Yuki Tsunoda is going to be released very shortly. Everybody's going to be released very shortly. And let's see what will happen. There you go. Max Verstappen is the first one to make a move. He's going down the pit lane, followed by an Alfa Romeo. I think that's a Bottas, of course. Will the Haas get ahead of them? No, he won't. So Valtteri Bottas will follow Max Verstappen out onto the track for their last laps in this sprint.
As Hamilton now does also get released from the box. They're on scrub sets of tyres by the looks of things, not wanting to use a brand new set. Sergio Perez is also on a scrub set of tyres, but Pierre Gasly, as we mentioned earlier, is on a brand spanking new set of mediums now.
Yeah, so it looks like old tyres for both Red Bulls, but brand spanking new for a couple of others. So could be interesting to see right at the end. Of course, it's a more rubbered up track than earlier, so we'll see these times maybe a little bit quicker. Superman just saying in the comments, they're quite a funny comment, just saying, how do you go from 2,000 subscribers last week to 60,000 this week? I'll tell you why, it's a different channel. This is actually our main company channel. This is the Forever Sports main channel, which has got 66.7 thousand subscribers, I think it is. So this is not where we put all of our motorsports content. This is where we're doing our lives at the moment for this week. And yeah, all of our main motorsports content is on that other channel, which does have 2,000 subscribers. That's Forever Motorsports. So be sure to go and check that out and subscribe to that channel. And be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel as well if you want to. Make sure you don't miss any Formula 1 content in case we're on either or channel when we go live.
Yeah, so just looking at the first few drivers getting ready to start their hot laps, Max Verstappen has started a hot lap. A little bit better, a few purple mini sectors there, but nothing phenomenal through there. Maybe some other drivers might be able to be a little bit faster. Some tyres being shown as softs that aren't on softs. They're all on mediums right now.
Yeah, it's all medium tyres. There's no soft tyres there, so don't look at that as a example. As Bottas starts his lap, let's see how he does in that Alfa Romeo. He's got personal best throughout the entire sector, but he's still by 0.23 seconds down on Max Verstappen's first sector. Let's see what he does in the second and third sector as well. Max Verstappen in the second sector, he's got a couple of personal bests, a couple of purples, but now a couple of slower times in his in the sector too. So maybe he's just getting held up by a bit of traffic there. Lando Norris and Russell around him, so maybe he's been held up by traffic quite badly. I think maybe because he's got the
arm. He may have backed off now.
Yeah, definitely held up by traffic. Yeah, he seems to have backed off from his lap, so it's disappointing for Max Verstappen. Although having said that, he's now got a purple in sector 3, so maybe it's not actually affected him too much. Let's see what sort of lap time he finishes up with as he's going to cross the line now. The first one for the second attempt, of course.
111.2.
Very, very close to the 110s. So what will Valtteri Bottas do in response? He moves into 7th at 111.8. So he's currently, I imagine some more times some other drivers will beat that, as Norris now starts a fast lap for himself, and as does Oscar Piastri with just 18 seconds left of the sprint.
Yes, they have just a couple more seconds left to get their next times. started or to finish up their current laps. Kevin Magnussen, one of the next drivers to come around to start his lap. Does he get round in time though? 3, 2, 1. I think he just misses out.
I think Kevin Magnussen misses out the start time there. Although I think he just finished up a lap. No, that's what he did. He finished up a lap. 1:11.7. He's currently in 8th. Not brilliant. Ricciardo, look at that for a time. 1:11.4. Right up there in 2nd for Daniel Ricciardo. Brilliant into that lap. And Yuki Tsunoda, how do you respond to that? Actually, he's already responded at 1:11.6. He's currently in 7th. I'm not sure he's going to be safe as Perez now goes fastest at 1:11.2. Beating his teammate in Shootout 2.
Very interesting to see from Sergio Perez. Glad to see him finding some time out there on circuit. Lewis Hamilton, though, goes up into P4. Just waiting for another few drivers to finish up their laps.
Russell
Two
now.
Ferraris are also on a lap. Russell.
Down in 14th. Will he go up? He does into 5th at 1:11.5.
Yes, much better from George Russell. Norris now takes the fastest lap time around the circuit. A 1:11.221 ahead of Perez and Verstappen.
Yeah, ahead of Perez by 0.009 seconds, just might I add. As Sainz comes across the line, he goes ahead of Russell. Leclerc should be safe. He moves into 5th anyway. And Tsunoda might be hit out just by the only... No, Tsunoda's just made it. That is the end of SQ2. And our 5 eliminated drivers, of course, Alonso was unable to get out there. So he was eliminated down in 15th position. Bottas in 14th. Gasly in 13th. Hulkenberg in 12th. Magnussen in 11th. Yuki Tsunoda just makes it in 10th position. We have all of our big names still there, just not the Aston Martin drivers, of course. But the other 4 big teams are still there. And the 2 AlphaTauris. Daniel Ricciardo up in 4th. And Tsunoda in 10th position.
Really great lap time from Daniel Ricciardo there at the end. Definitely was not expecting that, as Old Man Rue once again says, go Danny Rick. Certainly will be very happy for Daniel Ricciardo there. Pierre Gasly gets eliminated there, unfortunately, down in 13th place, whereas his teammate Esteban Ocon was out in the session beforehand, having that incident between himself and Fernando Alonso.
Yes, so we're going to start the next poll. Who is going to top SQ3, the final shootout session? We've got Perez as an option. We've got Norris as an option. And we've got Max Verstappen as another option. Be sure to go and participate in that poll now. And as well, also other, in case your driver is not there that you reckon is going to be in it. So please go and participate in that poll right now. And let's get your votes in before SQ3, which will get going in just a bit, I'm sure. Of course, we had a delayed start to SQ2 as a result of Ocon's damage to the wall. But I don't think we'll be too long until SQ3.
No, I'm certainly hoping we won't. Yesterday was relatively quick in between sessions, as Magnussen gets told, unfortunately, he's out down in P11, and he responds with, come on, unfortunate for him, but that is how it is. You get eliminated by 0.051 tenths, so close from the top to the bottom. 0.051 to be eliminated from 10th to 11th.
I mean, that's
that's
very disappointing there. Unfortunate for them there. So just going about Shootout 3, how it all works in Shootout 3. We will have only 8 minutes, and it's on soft tyres versus the medium tyres that we've had so far in this whole session. So we're back onto the soft tyres, so we're going to see 110s again, very much so. And we could see the McLarens maybe show their pace. We didn't get to really see it yesterday as a result of that red flag. Piastri was going to finish up really, really nicely, was unable to do so as a result of that red flag that we had at the session. And you know, maybe we'll see the McLarens do better this time around. Norris tops Shootout 2. We could see him maybe try and top Shootout 3. But Shootout 3 will get going in just a little bit. 8 minutes time. Oh, 8 minutes is how long it'll last. And it's on soft tyres. So who do you think is going to be your top 3? Be sure to let us know in the comments. And otherwise participate in that poll in terms of who's going to be on pole for the sprint race.
Yes, I'm hoping that this next shootout session starts in the next 2 minutes. But just looking at the track dominance between Lando Norris and Sergio Perez, Lando Norris has quite a lot more track dominance over Sergio Perez throughout the majority of the track. Just a few of those tricky turns where they do have some of that dominance. Looking in front of Fernando Alonso's garage at the moment, you've got all the Aston Martin employees standing in front so no one can look inside, as Alonso is currently chatting with the media about that incident between himself and Esteban Ocon.
I imagine he's just going to say it's not his fault. Yeah, he just came out of nowhere. And what am I supposed to do, basically? Reece is going to listen into that interview and he'll let us know the thoughts of Fernando Alonso very shortly. Whilst he does that, I'm going to watch a replay of Pierre Gasly. I don't think he gets across the line just in time. Yeah, this was a good lap as well, he said, as he got eliminated down in 13th. So very disappointing for him. It's going to be better in the race. It's got to be. So maybe just a little bit of concern for Pierre Gasly and Alpine. Maybe saying that the Alpine's not quite as quick as he hoped it would be. Disappointing for him. I'm sure he'll hope his car was better. Of course, Ocon, his teammate, went out in the first qualifying session after hitting with Fernando Alonso, which Reece is listening to an interview there to listen for Fernando Alonso's thoughts. What are his thoughts?
Well, just speaking now a little bit about their thoughts for the pace for tomorrow's race as well as the sprint race, as SQ3 will start at 11:57, so in the next 2 minutes time the session will start. Obviously saying that he's disappointed about that crash between himself and Esteban Ocon. He hasn't been able to see a replay of it just yet, but he has heard that Ocon did have that little moment on the apex. So, as he said, just disappointed because both his car and Ocon's car have quite a lot of damage now.
Yeah, luckily Alonso's car doesn't have too much damage. I'm sure he'll be fine for the sprint. Ocon, on the other hand, I'm not sure will make it. Stewards have noted the SQ1 incident involving cars 22 Sonoda will be investigated after the session, failing to follow race director's instructions for another maximum delta time. So that's now 5 different drivers, I think, going to be investigated after the session for not following delta times. We could see some penalties given out for the sprint race in terms of grid penalties as a result of not following that maximum delta time.
Yes, just waiting for the session to be resumed now. Just under a minute to go. I'm just going to check how many seconds that is. It's about 45. As we're watching on with Carlos Sainz, he did really quite well in the first half of that second sprint qualifying session. He was quite high up there, but got relegated down by Lando Norris all the way up in P1 and some other drivers putting in quicker lap times. Just looking at his car there, no damage to the floor, which is good. Also with Daniel Ricciardo putting in a phenomenal time there near the end. He's up in P4 right now. What can he do?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what Daniel Ricciardo could do. He could maybe get himself into position to score some good points in the sprint race. That would be fantastic, of course. So let's see if he can get further up the grid, of course, in this third session, which gets going literally in how much seconds do we see? I need a countdown just so I can get this right. There you go. There you go. I've done it. Don't worry.
Sorry.
I caught it just in time. My word. Talk about catching it just in time. I was good. Tell you what. I'm good at my job every now and then. And yeah, so we have 8 minutes, of course, remaining in the session. And I don't think anybody's making their way out to track ASAP. So it's going to be a 1-lap attempt for most of them on softs.
I do think so as well. I think they won't be wanting to go out and ruin too many sets of softs, as they only really get one free set for the session. Maybe Max Verstappen and Red Bull might just get out there early and get it over and done with, but you have to take into consideration the evolution of this track could really give you that top spot in qualifying.
Yeah, so we're going to see if going out later could be beneficial to you, or going out early to try and maybe...
Ferrari don't even have tyres on yet.
No, I was about to say, nobody's keen to get out. There's going to be a 1-lap attempt for everybody. But when does everybody leave? When do you make the decision to go out? Where do you want to be in terms of the traffic? Do you want to ensure that you're near the front? Do you want to ensure that you're near the back? It's going to be difficult because, of course, if you're near the front, you'll definitely get a lap in. If you're near the back, maybe somebody crashes out. Maybe there's an instant ahead of you. Maybe there's a bit of debris that gets caused up. But, of course, you've got a more wrapped up track. All these decisions need to weigh in on the teams in terms of when they send these cars out. It's very, very difficult. Of course, a very tactical game is Formula 1.
Yes, it certainly is a very tactical game. We see it a lot in the races, of course, with dummy pit stops and the strategies really coming in to play quite a lot. A lot of teams just getting ready. Oscar Piastri's car currently just up on the jacks, getting waited to getting ready to be lowered down there and sent out. As are the Mercedes cars of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. They should have a little bit more pace we expected them to, but what can they do throughout the remainder of the session?
Well, we've only got 6 minutes left, basically, and we've yet to see a car make its way out into track. So, still waiting for movement in the pit lane as to when somebody would trigger everybody else going. The moment the first car goes out, everybody will go out. You know that's going to happen. So, we'll wait and see what happens with that. Still lots of waiting around. Nobody's keen to get out there just yet. And this is the one interesting thing that you do have, at least with the sprint shootouts, is, of course, the very last sprint shootout often tends to be like a 1-lap wonder. So when you go and play the Formula 1 game, you have the option of selecting... you have the option of selecting for qualifying 1-lap attempt. It's basically that. It's basically this. It's the same thing. They've got 1 lap to put the best thing in. If you make 1 mistake, you're stuffed. You're in 10th. You make, no mistakes, you might be challenging for first position.
Well, luckily it's only a sprint race, so it doesn't have everything riding on it. But still, you can get some extra points.
Yeah, exactly. We could see some extra points if you do manage to do quite well. Lando Norris currently sits 6th in the Drivers' Championship. He, of course, came top of SQ2. Will he be able to do anything in SQ3? We're going to be watching these McLarens quite closely. So, still waiting for any car to get out there. Just under 5 minutes now.
Yes, and if you guys want to put your money where your mouth is, do be sure to check our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. They're a betting company where you can put all of your bets down for this weekend and all of the other Grand Prix weekends. Yeah, lots of betting odds on there. If you want to check some of the betting odds for this race weekend, do be sure to go and check my race preview. It's near the end there. I do have some of the betting odds for this race weekend. I think the betting has closed though for this race weekend. But also, if you want to be secure for all of your cyber needs, do be sure to go and check Bitdefender, the global leader in cyber security. Bitdefender assure that all of your home devices are secure against cyber attacks and cyber threats. So do be sure to go check out both BOYLESPORTS and Bitdefender in our channel description. Thank you very much to Bitdefender and BOYLESPORTS for sponsoring both Forever Sports and Forever Motorsports.
Exactly that. So we've got 4 minutes remaining in the session. No movement from the pits right now just yet. I'm sure we'll probably see
4 minutes and 18 seconds left.
Yeah, as I said, no, 3 minutes actually.
Sorry, 3 minutes.
So 3 minutes and 50 seconds remaining in the session. Still no movement in the pits. So whilst we do, of course, have you in anticipation for what happens right at the end of the sprint shootout, as soon as the sprint shootout ends, we're going to end the stream and we're going to start our next stream, which is for the sprint race itself, and we'll review this session right then. So don't go anywhere at the end of this. We're going to go straight into the next stream, and we'll have a chat, and you guys can give your predictions for what happens in the sprint itself. And of course, we'll go and watch.
Oscar Piastri is the first one to jump out onto track. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark, but Oscar Piastri, the Ferrari, then reacts ahead of Max Verstappen. Could be an unsafe pit release there for the Ferrari. I think that may have been Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri, though, going to be the first one out on circuit. Possibly not the most beneficial. Another possible unsafe release there from the two AlphaTauris, but they're together, so not necessarily.
I know exactly.
Unsafe.
Sorry, I know exactly.
As Max Verstappen goes to overtake Daniel Ricciardo in the pits now.
Yeah, very interesting. Daniel Ricciardo's actually letting him by. Daniel Ricciardo just says, "Oh, if you really want to, you can go do that." Max Verstappen overtaking the Ferrari. It's interesting that you say it's not the greatest decision for McLaren to send out Piastri and Norris first. Piastri's first out when yesterday he was the only driver to be seriously caught out by that red flag. So he doesn't want it to happen again. He wants to put his best lap in, and he says, "Stuff the rest of you. I'm going to go and actually put in a lap, and you guys can be, put over by something else." Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Max Verstappen now ever so slightly slowing up the pack as they leave the pit exits there. He does now react and pull the trigger and goes out on his hot lap. Not his hot lap, rather, but his out lap to start warming his tyres up. Just waiting to see these first few times put in by the drivers. Piastri making his way through the final sector now, and then we will see the first times in this Q3 or SQ3 session.
Yes, indeed. So we've got 10 drivers all going for watching a replay of Max Verstappen overtaking everyone in that
it was
exit.
after the pit lane line, so it should be legal.
Yeah, and of course, as long as he keeps his tyres within the white lines, at least 2 tyres, just maybe waiting for...
No, he's overtaking people in the pit lane. This could be a penalty for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I was about to say, he overtook the Ferrari in the pit lane, and he then overtook him, still not over that line. So Max Verstappen could be in trouble here. This could be very interesting. He was too impatient, I think, in the pit lane. Maybe got frustrated.
Apparently, if you feel you're getting blocked, you're able to overtake in the pit lane.
Maybe that's why he came onto the radio saying he was being blocked. So Piastri starts our first hot lap of this session. Of course, he gets a purple first sector, but it's been stolen away by Max Verstappen behind him. Lando Norris is a little bit slower than he should be in Sector 1. Sector 2, though, seems to be going well for him. Sector 2, let's see what Piastri can do.
Lando Norris very quick in that second sector. Max Verstappen not able to retaliate and match that. Piastri has a little bit of traffic of George Russell as he's sparking along through turn 6 and 7. Difficult position on the track. Max Verstappen coming through that second sector now. That middle sector has been taken by Lando Norris. Can Max Verstappen steal that away from Lando Norris now as he comes through there, waiting for that time to be taken away? Perez takes away the first sector, though, from Verstappen.
Piastri now moves himself into first, of course, a 111.1. That's not going to be quick enough. He lost a lot of time in Sector 2 as Norris now crosses the line. A 110.6.
First time into the 110s here today. What can Max Verstappen do in retaliation to that? Max Verstappen only 10th at 110.683.
So Max Verstappen will not start at the top. Of course, we're 20 seconds away. For all these times will be their last times. Let's see what happens here with Charles Leclerc. As he's coming around the final corner, he looks to be going very, very quickly. Where will he finish? Only third at 111.0. Piastri could maybe not finish quite at the 10th place itself. As now we have Yuki Tsunoda across the line. He moves into third ahead of Leclerc. Yuki Tsunoda ahead of a Ferrari in third position. Now here comes a teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, who had a purple sector. I think he didn't know he didn't.
P5.
Down in P5 only, ahead of Piastri, but behind Yuki Tsunoda and Charles Leclerc. Perez into third.
Not good enough for Sergio Perez to be able to beat his teammate, but a relatively good qualifying position for now. Still waiting for Sainz, who crosses the line. He only goes 7th. Not good enough for Carlos Sainz, as Lewis Hamilton crosses the line now, and he goes up into 4th with the 110.9. Just waiting for George Russell. He comes through. Now the final sector. What can he do to upset the rest of the drivers out there on circuit? He will be the final driver to finish his lap time, but will he be able to cause any upsets? Mark thinks not. He finishes the time up ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton, only up into 4th.
So, a very interesting qualifying there for the sprint race, which gets going in just a bit. Norris will top it. He did say the McLarens would have pace. Piastri did stuff up his lap, unfortunately, so he finishes only in 10th position. But Norris is our pole sitter for the sprint race, with Verstappen and Perez right behind him.
Yes, very interesting end to the session there. At least it's what we would have expected to get yesterday, should we not have been affected by the rain. But really quite exciting start for the sprint race ahead of us later on this afternoon. Lando Norris starting from pole ahead of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Then we do have George Russell and Lewis Hamilton with Yuki Tsunoda down on P6, Charles Leclerc P7, Daniel Ricciardo P8, Carlos Sainz P9, and Oscar Piastri then in P10.
So, very, very interesting session that was. And of course, we're now going to end this session. We're going to move straight into the next session, which is the sprint race stream. And don't go anywhere. We're going to go and review this session right then and there. So, thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in